Chapter 11:17. Passing through the mountains. Jian-Chen said nothing. He just stared at the mountains while Zhou Chuyun, Lu Jun and the others all remained quiet. Clearly, they viewed Jian-Chen as their leader. Sir, there are many powerful feral beasts in the mountains. There are even 16-star beasts, so it's extremely dangerous. Since the ancient times, there has not been many people who have managed to pass through the mountains. They've all passed through using a single tunnel below, explained Zhou Chuyun. He knew that this was Jian-Chen's first time in the divine realm, so he knew that Jian-Chen didn't know much. How much time would we roughly spend by going through the tunnel? Jian-Chen asked. The tunnel's several tens of thousand kilometers away from us. We can't travel too quickly in the divine realm, and combined with the obstructions we'll come across from time to time, it should take half a month, Zhou Chuyun analyzed diligently. It must be your first time coming to the divine realm, warrior, for you to ask questions like this. The tunnel up ahead is the only way into the depths of the divine realm. No matter how long it is, you need to pass through it. Even 15-star experts aren't exceptions, and probably ordinary 16-star experts won't be enough to pass through the mountains, unless they are on par with hall elders, an old man chucked from the other group. Just join our group. We can deal with the dangers we come across together. Otherwise, you'll probably pass away before you even get close to the tunnel if you travel alone, said a skinny young man. This is already close to the depths, so 15th-star feral beasts often lurk nearby. Once you come across them, you won't even be able to run away. You should join us. Then we will have the power to fight back even if we come across 15th-star beasts. Many people in the group spoke to persuade Jian-Chen and the others to join them. They could tell with a single glance that the Blue Sky Adventurers possessed a group of Heaven Saint Masters, so they definitely could not be very powerful. Possessing 3 13th-star experts was already rather impressive for them. Sir, what do you think? Zhou Chuyun looked at Jian-Chen, waiting for him to make the decision. Several people in the other group were immediately interested with what Zhou Chuyun asked. To lead a 13th-star expert, that person was definitely of the 14th star. If someone like that joined their group, their overall strength would definitely increase by very much. At this moment, many people had made up their minds. They decided that they needed to pull Jian-Chen and the others into the group. It'll take too long to travel through the tunnel. I want to cross through the mountains, Jian-Chen indifferently replied. Crossing through the mountains to him seemed like an extremely ordinary matter. However, it was a clap of thunder when the other people heard his words. They all became stunned as disbelief flooded their faces. Even Zhou Chuyun and the others who had a rough understanding of Jian-Chen's strength looked the same. Although people have crossed through the mountains of the Sleeping Dragon before, all of them were terrifyingly powerful people without any exceptions. There were plenty of hall elders at the peak of the 16th star among them, possessing the power to destroy the surroundings with a gesture of the hand. Did that mean that the young man who loved to appear ordinary possessed similar strength? At that moment, Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun began to reassess Jian-Chen's strength. Crossing the mountains was definitely not something a 15th-star expert could do. Warrior, you can't be joking, right? Do you really want to head through the mountains? Someone asked in disbelief. Jian-Chen paid no attention to him as he walked closer to the mountain range. Zhou Chuyun and the others hesitated before making up their minds, closely following Jian-Chen to the mountains. These people have no sense of danger. Do they really think that they're as powerful as a hall elder? I can guarantee that they'll die without a whole corpse soon. Someone broke into laughter. Jian-Chen and the people of the Blue Sky Adventurers had disappeared into the depths of the mountains. Closely after they disappeared, an earth-shaking roar broke the silence, ringing loudly through the sky. However, it soon fell silent. No one knew what had happened. That's the roar of a 15th-star beast. Those people have probably died to it. They sure are ignorant. 15th-star beasts are so powerful. How could they go against one with just their strength? Look, they've been torn apart by a beast before they could even do anything. Many people in the larger group sneered at the bottom of the mountains. There were also others who regretfully sighed. A few glorious 13th-star experts had just passed away like that. Several dozen kilometers ahead, the 4 old men suddenly halted. They looked back at the mountains behind them. They had obviously been alerted by the great roar. Gleams of light flickered through their eyes as they were filled with doubt. Someone's entered the mountains. Is it that young man? One of the old men asked with a deep voice. He was very serious. That young man looks ordinary, but he's actually a great expert who keeps a low profile. He must be a 15th-star expert. The roar was from a 15th-star beast. It could only manage one roar before falling silent. Has it been killed? Impossible. 15th-star beasts can't be slain so easily. Probably only 16th-star experts can do something like that. Is the young man a 16th-star expert? The four old men discussed the situation. They were all extremely stern, and some shock and disbelief was plastered across their faces as well. Zhou Chuyun, Lu Jin, and the others followed behind Jian Qin as they shook in fear. Their faces were filled with dread as their legs trembled. Behind them, a huge beast lay in a pile of rocks. Its bright red blood was scattered across the ground. A 15th-star beast might not have been invincible among people of the 15th star, but it was still extremely powerful. However, it had been beheaded by a single stroke from Jian Qin, dying after roaring in fear. Killing a 15th-star feral beast with a single stroke was something Zhou Chuyun and the others had never even imagined. Never would they have thought that they would personally witness something like that. They became extremely shocked, as if they were living in a dream. Jian Qin wielded his bloody emperor armament up ahead as he carved out a path, steadily but firmly. He did not want to waste too much time here, wanting to pass through the mountain range in the shortest amount of time. As a result, he finished all of the beasts he came across as fast as he could. There were many beasts that lived in the mountains. Most of them were of the 15th star. Although they lacked the ability to think, they seemed to have gained a low level of intelligence after reaching such a level of strength. They would become rulers of their own territory. Jian Qin advanced through the territory of many powerful beasts. He constantly fought as the power of the emperor armament erupted from time to time. He paved a path of blood. In just half a day, Jian Qin had killed 5 15th-star beasts and more than 10 14th-star beasts. He obtained 2 15th-star thunderstones and several 14th-star thunderstones, causing Zhou Lin and the other Heaven Saint Masters to grow envious. Jian Qin only kept the 2 15th-star thunderstones, throwing the others to Zhou Chuyun. Zhou Chuyun became very excited. 14th-star thunderstones were a great fortune to Zhou Chuyun and the others, but they were useless to Jian Qin. Only 15th-star thunderstones piqued his interest. On that day, the divine realm was very noisy. Roars of beasts constantly reverberated across the mountains, alarming countless adventurers in the divine realm. The roars caused quite a large disturbance and various discussions could be heard everywhere. Some people were saying that a king beast had been born in the mountains. It possessed a terrifying strength and was currently engaging in battles everywhere to expand its territory. There were also others who said that a terrifyingly powerful person had ventured into the mountain range, which shocked many adventurers. Below the mountains, a large group of adventurers currently moved by foot. Their complexions were very horrible, glancing back from time to time. They were filled with shock and doubt. They could hear the great beast roars from several hundred kilometers away, which caused them to be filled with shock and an uneasiness. They knew that a king beast had not been born, rather a powerful adventurer had entered the mountains. This is impossible. He's actually still alive. The roars are filled with pain and fear. They sound so miserable. These are roars of despair right before death. Was that ordinary-looking young man a 15th-star expert? No, it's likely he was a 16th-star expert. There have been many roars, so he's roughly killed 20 beasts. There are 15th-star ones among them. People carefully analyzed the roars from the ground. They were utterly shocked. They had never thought that such a powerful expert had just brushed past them. The people who had spoken scornful remarks toward Jian Qin and the others were feeling the effects in particular. They were completely unsettled and filled with regret. At the same time, 9 black-robed men of various ages entered Divine City as they rode feral beasts. The patriarch of the Lanshan clan personally came to welcome them, politely inviting them into his clan. The patriarch of the Lanshan clan lowered himself as he greeted the esteemed guests in an extravagant hall within the Lanshan clan. Experts of Diork City, welcome to my Lanshan clan. You must have come for the divine water of the world, said the patriarch. Correct. We have indeed come for the divine water. Patriarch, please tell us all the details regarding the matter. A middle-aged man replied indifferently. Only the captain of a group of adventurers called the Blue Sky Adventurers knows the location of the divine water. However, they've recruited a few experts and have already entered the divine realm, said the patriarch. The 9 people from Diork City immediately frowned when they heard that. I've planted a tracking imprint onto a member of the adventurers. I am willing to lead the way for you all. Lan Emo walked in from outside and said to the black-robed people. Chapter 11:18. Strongest on the mountain peak? All right then, you can lead the way. We cannot delay this matter, so we will be leaving now, said the middle-aged man who had come from Diork City. He possessed quite some status in the group and possessed the authority to speak for the others. The group of people set off for the divine realm as Lan Emo lead them. I'll definitely make you regret it for killing my guards. So what if you're of the 15th star? I have my methods of dealing with you. I'll let the experts from Diork City handle you. Lan Emo coldly smiled from time to time as he led the group toward the divine realm. At the same time, an iron tower several hundred meters tall stood like a pillar connecting the earth and the sky in the center of a luxurious clan within a large city, several tens of thousand kilometers away. It loomed over the entire city from above. This was the greatest clan of Bibo City, the Huangdao clan. Indubitably, they held supreme power in the surrounding radius of several tens of thousand kilometers. An old man courteously stood before a heavy metal door on the highest level of the tower. He politely said, "Ancestor, the 100-footed clan of Diork City has already sent experts into the divine realm, likely to retrieve the divine water of the world. I met up with that old bastard from the 100-footed clan a few months ago and had a great fight. I injured his soul, and it cannot be healed with regular medicine. He probably wants to find the divine water to heal his injuries. Does he really think that the water's easy to find? Countless 16th-star experts and even hall elders have come out empty-handed in the past," an old voice boomed from within the metal door. It was extremely weak, and as soon as the person finished talking, he could not help but violently cough. "Ancestor, are you injuries all right? Someone seems to have found signs of the divine water in Divine City. I think the 100-footed clan must have learned about the water from him," the old man outside asked in concern. "Compared to the injuries to the soul of that old bastard from the 100-footed clan, my wounds are much better. Since the divine water of the world has appeared in the divine realm, we can't let the people of the 100-footed clan obtain it. Immediately send the Grand Elder with a few people to the divine realm to fight over it," the ancestor of the Huangdao clan said. Soon after that, a group of a dozen or so hurried out of the clan. Even the weakest members were saint rulers, and they were led by 2 saint kings. A group as powerful as this could essentially run amok on the Tianyuan continent without having to worry about consequences. Even peak-level organizations were unwilling to offend 2 saint kings so easily unless it boiled down to life or death. However, a group of similar strength in the sea realm was only considered a decent existence. This was because the sea realm's overall strength was greater than the Tianyuan continent. The numbers of saint emperors, saint kings, and saint rulers all exceeded amount on Tianyuan continent. More and more people learned about the divine water of the world. In a radius of several 100,000 kilometers, many powerful clans began to move. They all sent their experts to the divine realm in an attempt to get their hands on the water. The divine water from the divine realm was an extremely wondrous treasure of the world. Not only could it completely change the constitution of people, allowing people to obtain supreme talent that was rarely ever seen, it possessed indescribable benefits for the soul. It could allow a person to undergo a qualitative increase. Although the effects would not be as obvious to saint kings, it still possessed extremely great benefits. The divine water could appear at any time in the depths of the divine realm. On average, only a tiny amount would appear every 1,000 years, so searching for it completely depended on luck. As a result, The water became a rare treasure that was in great demand, but there was no supply. In the mountains of the Sleeping Dragon, Jianchen led the Blue Sky adventurers and approached the highest peak in just a little more than half a day. Once they passed through there, they would have formally stepped into the depths. Jianchen's emperor armament had been completely dyed red with blood. He purposely did not clean off the blood. Along the way, he had stepped over countless corpses of powerful feral beasts using his emperor armament. He had slain 10 15-star beasts and even 3 16-star ones. Though their strength ranged from the 5th to the 6th heavenly layer. He obtained 4 15th-star thunderstones and 1 16th-star thunderstone in total. The people of the Blue Sky adventurers had already become completely numb to Jianchen's supreme strength. Following behind him, they did nothing for him but reaped great benefits, enough to make them go crazy from joy. This was because Jianchen did not keep a single 14th-star thunderstone he found along the way, giving them all to them. Their profits from that single day had already exceeded everything they had made in the divine realm in the past 300 years. During this time, the people at the outskirts of the divine realm were thrown into a complete uproar. The roars from 15th-star feral beasts in the mountains of the Sleeping Dragon rang throughout most of the divine realm, allowing many people to learn that there was currently a supreme expert on a rampage in the mountains. However, none of them knew just what strength this expert possessed. Only the group of adventurers and the 4 old men saw Jianchen and the others enter the mountains. The Blue Sky explorers followed Jianchen from 100 meters away to avoid the ripples of battle from the fights with the feral beasts. Every single one of them looked at Jianchen with gazes filled with admiration and fanaticism. At this moment, Jianchen suddenly stopped. He stared at a cave 10 kilometers ahead for a while before turning to them. "There's a powerful beast within the cave. Stay here, I'll go deal with it first." The members of the Blue Sky mercenaries all replied before carefully backing off to several kilometers away. They hid behind a huge rock in the end. Jianchen wielded the emperor armament as he shot toward the top of the mountain in a blur. The feral beasts of the mountains did not possess any intelligence, but they were very territorial. Almost every single one of them would possess their own territory. As long as other people or beasts did not intrude on their territory, they would not attack even if they had discovered a target. They were clearly different from other types of beasts. A deafening roar boomed from the top of the mountain as soon as Jianchen set foot in its territory. The entire mountains shook and a few boulders cracked, causing them to rain down. The terrifying sound wave caused the space there to ripple. If it were not for the toughness of the space there, that roar probably would have shattered from the single roar. A huge serpent dragon took to the air from the top of the mountain. It hovered 10 meters above the ground, revealing its 300-meter-long body. Violet scales glistened all over it in a blinding fashion as a terrifying presence enveloped all of the surroundings, radiating far beyond the mountains. It frightened all the adventurers who passed by below, all paling as a result. In the distance, the 4 old men stopped. They turned their heads to the origin of the sound. They were all solemn and one of them said, "That sounds like a serpent dragon. It's one of the strongest existences within the mountains. I never thought that someone would have already reached there. That person's strength is far greater than the 4 of us. Fortunately, we didn't end up fighting him before." The most powerful existences of the mountains have almost all reached the peak of the 16th star. They've stopped many 16th-star experts in the past, and some of these 16th-star experts have died to them before. I wonder if that young man can make it past them. I hope that person dies to the serpent dragon, or we may face danger at any moment once he enters the depths of the divine realm. The 4 old men's expressions all took a very bad turn. They felt pressured by Jianchen's strength. Jianchen finally became stern. He had sensed the vast presence of the serpent dragon at the top of the mountain long ago, but its true strength had far exceeded his expectations. 9th heavenly layer of Saint King, only a step away from becoming invincible below Saint Emperor, Jianchen murmured. However, he felt no fear at all. He already knew from the feral beasts he killed earlier that they were powerful, but they did not possess any abilities and didn't have much intelligence. All their movements were based off instinct, far different from human experts of the same level. The glistening serpent dragon furiously roared from the top of the mountain. Its blood-red eyes stared fixedly at Jian Chen as it spat out a mouthful of purple flames. Jian Chen used the illusory flash, and with a step, he appeared several hundred meters ahead, right in front of the serpent dragon after leaving behind an afterimage where he had been standing before. He leaped to the top of the serpent dragon's head and stabbed down with the emperor armament as it emanated a dark light. The entire weapon plunged in, only leaving the sword hilt exposed. Red blood squirted from the serpent dragon's head. It produced a painful wail as it writhed violently in the air. It wanted to shake Jian Chen off. Jian Chen held onto the emperor armament with his right hand to stabilize himself while he grabbed a few scales with his left hand. He could not be shaken off no matter how much the serpent dragon struggled. Although the beast was at the 9th heavenly layer of Saint King, it did not possess much intelligence at all. All of its movements were based off instinct, so it immediately suffered against Jian Chen, who was extremely experienced in battle. The air cracked as a violet streak of light flashed by. The thick tail of the serpent dragon nimbly moved about, creating an explosive sound in the air. A strike from it would be extremely destructive. Chapter 11:19. Slaying the violet serpent dragon. The serpent dragon's tail viciously whipped across Jian Chen's back. His clothes were reduced to rags in an instant as the powerful force ripped Jian Chen from the dragon's head. His back turned to a blood mess and many of his bones broke. The serpent dragon was just too powerful after all. It lacked intelligence, but every single attack from it was at the level of 9th heavenly layer Saint King's. Even with Jian Chen's powerful chaotic body, he could not withstand such attacks. Jian Chen was thrown back 5 kilometers. He then flipped in the air and steadily landed on the ground. A streak of blood ran from the corner of his lips as chaotic force coldly surged through him. Not only did he push the chaotic body to its limits, he also used the chaotic force to quickly regenerate his injuries. At the same time, strands of white light rose from Jian Chen's body. He used half a strand of radiant Saint Force origin energy to heal as well, though the glow was not very bright. Crack, crack. With clear, crisp sounds that came from bones, Jian Chen's broken bones on his back quickly healed at a visible pace. Under the recovery of both radiant Saint Force origin energy and the chaotic force, he regenerated at an unbelievable rate. Jian Chen dared not be careless against a 9th heavenly layer Saint King serpent dragon. He needed to use everything he had. The beast before him was incomparable to the spectral elder of the Yama Hall, the opponent he fought most recently. The violet serpent dragon let out a huge roar. It was filled with pain, and the might of a true dragon was vaguely present within it. Its 300-meter-long body violently writhed, smashing into the rocks and shaking the entire mountain. Broken pieces of stone were thrown everywhere. When Jian Chen had stabbed the head of the serpent dragon before, he had injected a sliver of chaotic force into its huge head. It was currently rampaging wildly and wreaking havoc on the serpent dragon's nerves, causing it excruciating pain. However, the serpent dragon was still a powerful existence at the 9th heavenly layer of Saint King. Its body and vitality were just too powerful. Coupled with the fact that it lacked an origin soul, the chaotic force failed to harm it as heavily as it would harm a Class 8 magical beast. A bright, purple light began to glow from the dragon as terrifying energy caused the mountain peak to violently pulse. The serpent dragon instinctively used all of its energy to temporarily suppress the chaotic force in its head. It swung its tail, which cracked with a crisp sound in the air, as it shot toward Jian Chen in the form of a blur. Jian Chen was still healing, but he was on guard. Almost the moment the tail shot out, he moved. Using the illusory flash, he shifted from where he had stood almost instantaneously, leaving in the form of a blur. He charged toward the serpent dragon up ahead fearlessly. Boom! The tail viciously struck the ground where Jian Chen had been standing before with a great force, immediately producing a deafening boom. The entire mountain range shook and several smaller mountains began to collapse from the vibrations. As Jian Chen approached the serpent dragon, he leaped, wanting to jump onto its head once more and deal a fatal blow. The serpent dragon angrily growled. It lacked intelligence, but it had suffered once already. It had obviously learned and knew that it could not let Jianchen onto its head. It immediately swung its head to one side and spat out purple flames at the same time, bathing Jianchen in a sea of fire. The purple flames were extremely terrifying. Blotting out the sky, they seemed to be able to burn even air. Some of the rocks on the ground had even been reduced to flaming red lava. Jianchen was in the air at this time, so he could not avoid the flames. He was cloaked by the purple flames, and the temperature was so terrifying that even his chaotic body was not enough to endure it. He felt intense pain all over. Jianchen bellowed out and chaotic force immediately began to gush out from the chaotic Niden within his dantian. It exited through his skin, forming a barrier outside him to block the fire. Jianchen then raised the emperor armament at the sky and a supreme sword intent radiated from him. He swung out twice with lightning speed. Two sword chi, completely condensed from chaotic force, flashed out as black streaks. They broke through the flames and shot toward the serpent dragon's eyes with lightning-like speed. Spurt! The serpent dragon's eyes exploded. It could not help but let out a howl from the agonizing pain, causing it to stop spitting out the flames. Jianchen did not hesitate at all. He quickly approached the serpent dragon with his emperor armament and stabbed at the center of its forehead. Even though the serpent dragon possessed a very tough defense, its body was unable to stop a full-strength blow from Jianchen. As blood squirted out, the emperor armament was stabbed into its head once more, and just like last time, only the hilt was visible. Jianchen's eyes were cold. Without giving any time to the serpent dragon to respond, he immediately pulled out the emperor armament. With a tremble of his arm, he instantly stabbed out 3 times. The attacks seemed to barely be visible with only blurry afterimages remaining. The speed was unbelievable. As every strike entered the serpent dragon's head, a strand of chaotic force was deposited. In agony, the serpent dragon began to madly struggle. Its huge head rammed into Jianchen's body, sending him into the air. Its vitality was just too great, and it lacked an origin soul, so it lacked a weakness. It remained just as lively as before even after sustaining so many life-threatening attacks. Jianchen landed on a huge rock and stabilized himself. Afterward, he suddenly pushed off and the rock immediately shattered. He shot toward the serpent dragon like a rocket as he wielded the emperor armament high above his head with his 2 hands. The emperor armament quickly expanded, reaching 30 meters in length in a short while. A layer of destructive chaotic force wrapped around it. Jianchen held the sword with 2 hands and his presence skyrocketed to the limit. With a deep growl, he swung the huge sword toward the dragon's neck. The serpent dragon's neck immediately began to flow with blood. A quarter of its neck was chopped through, forming a vicious wound. Jianchen lifted his hands one more, raising the sword to the sky again. He wanted to chop down and completely behead the serpent dragon. Suddenly, the violet serpent dragon opened its large mouth. Before Jianchen could swing down a second time, it lunged out after sensing where Jianchen was. Jianchen had never thought that the blind serpent dragon that lacked intelligence could still sense where he was. Caught off guard, he was bitten by the serpent dragon. One of its sharp teeth pierced through Jianchen's chest, lodging his body in the dragon's mouth. Pain ached from his chest. The serpent dragon's head had already become bloody. It pinned down Jianchen with its mouth and a sharp tooth through his chest. It then began to shake its head desperately. It was trying to rip Jianchen to pieces. If any other Saint King ended up in the same position as him, they would have been ripped to pieces long ago. However, Jianchen's chaotic body was just astounding. It forcefully resisted, and Jianchen failed to become more injured. Though, violent pain flooded his body as his flesh was twisted. Jianchen furiously roared as the emperor armament returned to its regular size in the blink of an eye. Afterward, he swung it at the serpent dragon's tooth as hard as he could. The dragon had closed its mouth. If Jianchen did not break through the sharp tooth, he would not break free at all. Although the serpent dragon was of the 9th heavenly layer, it lacked intelligence and did not possess any Saint King abilities. It purely relied its instincts to fight, so Jianchen did not need any foreign help to deal with the beast. He could kill it on his own with the emperor armament. The tooth was extremely tough. Jian only managed to cut through it after swinging 5 times, and he immediately plucked the 2-meter-long tooth from his chest. But at this moment he smelled a sharp putrid smell. The serpent dragon's mouth immediately wrapped around Jian, who had just been freed from its head, immediately sucking him back down its neck without any time for Jian to respond. It had swallowed Jian whole. The next moment, the serpent dragon's body began to violently tremble. It wailed in agony, and with a spurt, a bloody hole suddenly appeared in its body. Jian had punctured a meter-wide hole from inside, making it out of the dragon's body coated in blood. Afterward, he expanded the emperor armament to 30 meters once more and viciously struck the wound on the dragon's neck. He expanded the cut to twice the size of before, where only half of the flesh kept the dragon's head to its body. Jian did not stop at all. He swung viciously once more, and the serpent dragon's wound deepened again. He then moved and disappeared from where he was standing with an afterimage. Almost the moment he disappeared, a purple light flashed by. The tail of the serpent dragon swept over to where Jian had been explosively. At this moment, Jian swung a 4th time. The huge sword chopped toward the remaining quarter of the serpent's dragon neck with a terrifying pulse of energy. The serpent dragon wailed miserably in a deafening manner. Its huge head was finally separated from its long body. It hit the ground with a loud thud and kicked dust into the air. The serpent dragon did not die after it had been beheaded. Its 300-meter-long body constantly writhed on the ground as its head miserably growled. The two parts quickly approached one another, trying to reconnect. Jian could not let it do as it wished. He knew that it would basically be incapacitated once the head was separated from the body, so he took a step and stopped the head from reaching the body. He continuously swung the emperor armament, filled with destructive chaotic force, at the head, turning the head into mush. The beasts here were different from magical beasts. No matter how powerful the magical beasts on the Tianyuan continent were, they would immediately die once their souls were wiped out. On the other hand, the serpent dragon lacked a soul in its head, so it possessed one less fatal weakness. With its extremely great vitality, Jian could only use the most primal method to kill it. Finally, the serpent dragon stopped wailing. Its long body slowly stopped moving, no longer struggling. Its vast vitality quickly leaked away, overtaken by the presence of death. Chapter 11:20, Killers of the Divine Realm. Soaring ants. Jian could not help but let out a breath of relief. He had finally slain the violet serpent dragon. Afterward, he flicked his sword up and a bloody object flew out of the serpent dragon's head. It landed heavily in Jian's hand. This was the Thunderstone in the serpent dragon. It could store the power of a 9th heavenly layer Saint King and deal an attack at the same level. It was only slightly worse than the flaming Jadites he had received from the president of the Radiant Saint Master Union. Jian put the Thunderstone and his emperor armament into his space ring before sitting down nearby. Streaks of milky white light radiated from him as he used the remaining half a strand of Radiant Saint Force origin energy to heal. He needed to make a full recovery as soon as possible. The huge hole in Jian's chest, which had been created by the dragon's tooth, healed at a visible rate. His flesh was regrowing. Far away, Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun walked over with the other Heaven Saint Masters with mixed feelings. They all paled when they saw the headless serpent dragon on the floor. This was one of the most powerful beasts on the peak of the mountains of the sleeping dragon. Even though it had not reached the peak of the 16th star, it was not far off. It was just as powerful as the Hall Elders of the 3 factions in the Sea Realm. They felt extremely great shock when they witnessed its corpse. This serpent dragon isn't weak, and every single part of it is a treasure. Clean it up first. You will have your share of it, Jian suddenly spoke to them as he healed. He needed to make a full recovery as fast as possible, so he could not bother with the corpse for now. Zhou Chuyun and the others ravished in joy. They hurriedly thanked him before immediately beginning to carve up the corpse. However, the serpent dragon's flesh was just too tough. Even though it was dead, they found it extremely arduous to clean up. Suddenly, a thunderous rumble rang through the air. The sky of the divine realm began to darken once more and thunder constantly rumbled. A streak of lightning would flicker through the clouds from time to time, shining with blinding light and illuminating the entire sky. Jianchen opened his eyes and looked at the dark sky. He immediately frowned and stopped healing. He drew his emperor armament from his space ring to help clean up the serpent dragon. With Jianchen, the cleanup process obviously became much faster. Jianchen pulled out the tendons and dug out its heart. Jianchen removed every single of its violet scales. The scales were extremely tough. If they were made into armor, the armor would even be able to block attacks from a saint ruler. The scales were even resistant to the full-powered attacks from those below the 5th heavenly layer of Saint King, so they were an exceptional treasure to weaker people. An armor made from the scales would be very tough, but it might not be able to protect the life of the person wearing it. All it provided was a greater defensive strength. A saint ruler with armor made out of the scales could be shaken to death by the absolute force of a Saint King, even if the Saint King could not puncture the armor. Besides those items, Jianchen also stored up quite a lot of the dragon's blood using jade bottles from Zhou Chuyun. The jade bottles were similar to space rings. They did not seem to be very big, but they contained huge interiors, able to store several thousand liters of liquid. The blood of serpent dragons was extremely valuable as well, especially when it came from one who had reached the 9th heavenly layer of Saint King. By bathing in it, Heaven Saint Masters and those below could strengthen their bodies, but it was not very effective for saint rulers who already possessed tough bodies. The layer of clouds in the sky sank lower and lower. It was about to pour. Jianchen knew he did not have much time left. In the end, he carved up a huge piece of serpent dragon flesh before hiding in the huge cave that the serpent dragon had inhabited. Rain began to fall soon after that. The acid rain landed on the remains of the serpent dragon, and the remains immediately began to dissolve at a visible rate. All of it disappeared very soon. No residue was left behind. Jianchen immediately became perturbed when he saw this. He could still remember last time when he was hurrying along with the Blue Sky Adventurers and their steel shields. At that time, there had been several beasts who thrived in the rain without suffering any injuries. The rain posed no threat to them at all, yet the serpent dragon's corpse was dissolving. This made him very confused. Zhou Chuyun gave an explanation after seeing Jianchen's puzzled expression. Esteemed warrior, the rain of the divine realm cannot harm the beasts that live in it, but it can dissolve their corpses. The rain can also dissolve all foreign objects brought in. Only things that are native to the divine realm are unaffected. Does that mean if I chop off a piece of rock and carry it over my head, it will block the rain? Jianchen asked. Correct. You can do that, but it's still too dangerous. Virtually no one dares to do that because the rocks here are not indestructible. A battle will occur when you come across a beast, and it'll become dangerous once the rock shatters. Also, the weather of the divine realm is different from outside. It's wet and windy here, so some of the water on the ground can even be swept up by the gusts. As a result, it's not safe even when you hide under a rock. The best method is to avoid the weather in a cave, explained Zhou Chuyun. Afterward, he painfully watched the serpent dragon's flesh dissolve and said, "What a pity. So much serpent dragon flesh has just been wasted. It can be sold for quite a lot outside." Jianchen finally understood. He then split a small portion of the blood and flesh he had obtained with Zhou Chuyun and the others, before settling down on the floor by himself to heal. The rain stopped the next day. Jianchen led the Blue Sky Adventurers as they continued on their way through the mountains toward the depths of the divine realm. He had made a full recovery with his chaotic force and radiant saint force origin energy, back in peak condition again. The way down the mountains was much easier. Although they still came across feral beasts from time to time, they were nowhere near as powerful as the serpent dragon. They were almost all of the 14th or 15th star. The corpses of these feral beasts were relatively ordinary, nowhere near as valuable as the violet serpent dragon. Even the people of the Blue Sky Adventurers did not bother with cleaning them up. Zhou Chuyun, where did you find the divine water of the world in the depths of the divine realm? Jianchen asked Zhou Chuyun as they made their way down. They had formerly stepped into the depths now. Esteemed warrior, it's best if you let me identify where we are since we entered the depths via a different path this time. I need to find the marks I left behind, Zhou Chuyan replied. Alright, you can lead the way. I'll deal with the feral beasts that come looking for trouble along the way. When we find the divine water, they'll be your share, Jianchen said to Zhou Chuyan. All of them continued on their way, but the person in front was now Zhou Chuyan. At the same time, the 100-footed clan from Diorc City had entered the divine realm as well under Lan Mo's guidance. Lan Mo used a secret technique to detect where the blue sky adventurers were, and he became stunned with that. He mumbled, "How is that possible? They've actually reached the depths of the divine realm already. How did they travel so far in such a short amount of time? Isn't this just too fast? There must be an expert leading their group, or how else can they travel so quickly? We need to speed up since they've already reached the depths of the divine realm. Let's go." An old man indifferently spoke from within the group before immediately shooting toward the depths. Soon after the people of the 100-footed clan entered the divine realm, the group of experts from the Huangdao clan of Bibo City had arrived as well. They were led by a 15th star expert, also heading toward the depths. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Jian Chen had moved through the depths with the blue sky adventurers during that time, and they had come close to danger many times. Just the beasts that ambushed them reached a dozen or so. The weakest was of the 13th star, and there were quite a few 15th star beasts. Suddenly, the buzzing sound of wings rang out from all direction. Jian Chen's group could not help but stop. What is this sound? Lu Jun looked around at his surroundings. He became rather stern. Even 15th star experts could die in the depths, so they needed to be cautious. Jian Chen also looked around, but he found nothing. His presence was unfortunately suppressed, so he could only expand it 1,000 meters away. It was no further than what he could see. The buzzing became louder and louder, basically blanketing the entire region. A huge, black mass gradually appeared before everyone. It was present everywhere, surrounding all of them. That's a group of jade-green flying ants. The smallest are fist-sized while some can reach up to the size of grown men. Jian Chen's vision was much better than Zhou Chuyun and the others, so he could identify what the black mass was from very far away. He felt troubled. He had discovered that there were far too many flying ants. They were packed together and basically blotted out the sky. Zhou Chuyun's and Lu Jun's expressions drastically changed when they heard that. Deep fear appeared in their eyes, and they involuntarily cried out, "Shit, it's the legendary killers of the divine realm, the soaring ants. There's an endless number of them and their bodies are tough like steel. They feast on energy and are immune to all energy attacks. They can ignore Saint Ruler and Saint King abilities. Retreat, retreat quickly. We need to retreat out of the soaring ants' territory immediately, or even people as powerful as Hall Elders will be devoured." Jian Chen's expression also changed. Immune to all energy attacks and able to ignore spatial abilities, Saint Rulers and Saint Kings just lost their greatest advantages before these soaring ants. All those below Saint Ruler were ants. The reason why that saying was valid was because all Saint Rulers had a basic grasp on spatial manipulation and possessed the capability to gather world force, yet these abilities were useless against the soaring ants. All of them turned around and began sprinting off in the direction they had come. However, they had already been encircled by the soaring ants, so they came up against a wall of soaring ants whichever direction they ran. The soaring ants were not powerful on their own. They were only possessed around the strength of an Earth Saint Master, but there were just far too many of them. Chapter 11:21. A divine beast Jianchen charged in front of everyone and immediately drew his emperor armament from his space ring. He said with a deep voice, "You need to be careful and protect yourselves. I'll pave a path by killing." Jianchen dared not to act careless while facing so many soaring ants. Chaotic force flowed violently within him, filling every inch of his body. He pushed the defenses of the chaotic body to the limit. I wonder if these soaring ants can devour my chaotic force or withstand my attacks imbued with chaotic force, Jianchen thought inside. He had already approached the wall of soaring ants in an instant. With a flash of black light, he had stabbed out with lightning-like speed. A huge sword chi shot forward. The huge sword chi flew through the swarm of ants like a dragon, creating several consecutive booms. The sword Qi chopped through the swarm like a hot knife through butter, colliding against countless soaring ants. It passed through the boulder behind the swarm in the end, disappearing with a deafening boom. Immediately, a large group of densely packed soaring ants dropped out of the sky. A passage, empty of enemies, had actually appeared where the sword Qi had passed through while the ground lay covered in a layer of ants. Jian Qin rejoiced inside when he saw this. His chaotic force was different from ordinary energy. Although these ants were immune to all energy attacks, they were not immune to chaotic force. Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun immediately became excited when they saw Jian Qin kill so many ants with a single sword Qi. They had guessed that the energy Jian Qin used was different long ago, but they had never thought it was so powerful and that it could harm the ants. However, their expressions froze very soon. The ants that had fallen on the ground began beating their wings and started flying again. Only a very small portion had died to Jian Qin's attack. Jian Qin's complexion changed as well. His attack was as powerful as a blow from a seventh heavenly layer Saint King, yet it had actually failed to kill off all the soaring ants at Earth's Saint Master. This scene shocked him. These soaring ants really are amazing. They may not be immune to my chaotic force, but the effectiveness of chaotic force is greatly reduced against them. Jian Qin sighed in amazement inside. The universe truly was vast for such an organism to exist. The clean path carved out by Jian Qin's sword Qi was quickly filled again by the many soaring ants. The ants seemed to have formed an airtight wall against Jian Qin and the others, wanting to trap them there. At the same time, the ants in the surroundings rapidly approached Jian Qin and the others. They surrounded them, gradually decreasing the amount of space the group could move. Jian Qin clenched the emperor armament with his right hand. A devastatingly dark light shot out, and he sent 3 more sword Qi into the swarm of ants ahead to temporarily carve out a path. "Let's go!" Jian Qin yelled at the people behind before charging through the path first. When his feet landed on the ground full of the ants, he could clearly feel twitches from beneath. All the people of the Blue Sky Adventurers became panic-stricken. They followed Jian Qin closely. If it were not for the fact that Jian Qin had attracted all of the ants' attention, they definitely would not still be alive. Jian Qin had already charged into the swarm and was now surrounded by dense layers of ants. He continuously stabbed out, forming a net of blurs around him. He chopped the fist-sized ants in front of him into 2. The flying ants' immunity to energy attacks was just too powerful, so sharp sword Qi was affected as well. The power of chaotic force against the ants were greatly reduced. As a result, Jian Qin completely relied on the sharpness of the emperor armament and his own body's strength to kill the ants. He could kill several with every stroke. The screeching of metal would ring out as his emperor armament struck the steel-like bodies of the ants. Jian Qin used his swordsmanship effectively at that moment, but there were just too many ants. They came at him endlessly, so he was unable to deal with all the attacks from every direction even with his quick sword techniques. Quite a few fist-sized soaring ants lunged toward his back, biting it viciously with their mandibles. But what happened next was unbelievable. The sharp jaws of the ants could not even puncture Jian Qin's skin. The ants' most terrifying ability was their resistance toward any forms of energy, which was why they could threaten Saint Kings. However, Jian Qin's chaotic body could withstand attacks from 3rd heavenly layer Saint Kings and come out unscathed. This was not a defense created through energy but just the toughness of flesh. This was why the flying ants could not scathe him. Suddenly, the ants on Jian Qin's back spat out some white liquid. Jian Qin felt a burning sensation on his back and strands of smoke actually appeared where the white liquid landed. This was an extremely corrosive poison. It was so powerful that he felt a wave of pain even with his chaotic body. However, the ants were just far too weak. They were only at the level of Earth's Saint Masters, so even if they used everything they had, they could not get through his chaotic body. If it were any other Saint King, these ants would mean almost certain death. They did not have bodies as tough as Jian Qin's, and with their Saint King abilities rendered ineffective, any barrier of energy would be useless before the flying ants. They would not be able to avoid the attacks at all. Suddenly, the people behind Jian Qin painfully wailed. Including Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun, all of them were covered by the ants. The soaring ants' attacks had passed through their protective layer of energy with their natural ability and had stabbed their mandibles deep into their bodies and were rapidly absorbing their energy. Their blood and their vitality was being drained away by the ants. Jian Chen's face slightly changed when he saw this. He originally did not want to rely on any external help, but he was without choice now that Zhou Chuyun and the others were in danger. He immediately pulled out the saint artifact and sucked them in along with the ants on them. Without Zhou Chuyun and the others dragging him down, it became much easier for Jian Chen to deal with the ants. He used the Emperor armament to continuously cull the ants in front of him, quickly charging away. Suddenly, a swarm of head-sized ants flew over. They were completely azure, different from regular flying ants. However, they were only at the level of Heaven Saint Masters. The ants still posed no threat to Jian Chen, who mercilessly killed them off with a single stroke of the sword. Very soon, over 20 flying ants, half the size of a regular human, flew over. They were also azure but much deeper in color, and they had reached Saint Ruler. The Saint Ruler soaring ants were far stronger than the Earth Saint Master ants. When they bit Jian Chen with their sharp jaws, he felt like he had been stabbed by needles. The acid from them caused Jian Chen's body to hiss and turn bright red, as if it had been burned. He felt a burning pain. Jian Chen's heart sank. If this continued, he had no idea if Saint King flying ants would appear. It would be troublesome if he really did come across such powerful soaring ants. Clang, clang. Jian Chen struck out as hard as he could, sending the 2 Saint Ruler ants in front of him flying. After that, he charged away as fast as he could, finally breaking free from the swarm of ants. He did not stop at all, continuing to travel further away. A constant buzzing vibrated the air behind him. The dense swarm of ants followed Jian Chen with the Saint Ruler ants flying at the very front. Suddenly, with an odd cry from behind, the wall of ants immediately stopped pursuing Jian Chen. Even the huge Saint Ruler ants stopped as well. Jian Chen glanced back and his eyes immediately froze. A 6-winged, fist-sized ant hovered in the air as a scarlet and orange light revolved around it. It seemed like a lord descending upon its citizens. A Saint King soaring ant, a king. Jian Chen's heart sank. He had never thought that there would be such a powerful existence among the ants. Although it was nowhere near as powerful as the violet serpent dragon, it was much harder to deal with. Jian Chen began to wonder whether Saint Kings could even harm the soaring ant king. I should have left the territory of the soaring ants by now. Fortunately, that soaring ant king didn't pursue, or I would be forced to run, Jian Chen secretly rejoiced. The effectiveness of his chaotic force against the Earth Saint Master ants was insignificant, so it would almost have no effect against the soaring ant king. It's a 7-colored heaven-devouring beast. I never thought that such a heaven-defying divine beast would exist here. Suddenly, the sword spirit's voices rang through Jian Chen's head. They were filled with shock, surprising Jian Chen to the point where he stared blankly. Ziying, do you recognize that soaring ant king? Jian Chen was astounded. He knew that items or organisms that could be named by the sword spirits were definitely not simple. Master, the flying ant surrounded by the 2 lights is a young divine beast. It still hasn't completely evolved. Once the lights around it turn to 7, it will become a true divine beast. It can devour anything in the world. It will become extremely powerful and very difficult to deal with, explained Ziying. Chapter 11:22, One Stalking Another. Ziying, doesn't that mean all these soaring ants can evolve into 7-colored heaven-devouring beasts? Jian Chen asked in surprise. If it were true, then the number of divine beasts would have been just too terrifying. Master, that can be the case on paper, but it's impossible to get them all to evolve into 7-colored heaven-devouring beast, because even in our vast and powerful world, there are extremely few of them. They're basically miraculous existences, so it's impossible for there to be too many 7-colored heaven-devouring beasts, said Ziying. It's a pity that this one only has 2 lights so far, so it's not a true 7-colored heaven-devouring beast. Only after it evolves to 7 lights does it become a true divine beast. However, the evolutions require vast quantities of energy. It's already extremely difficult for it to evolve to 2 colors in a place like this that lacks so many resources. It's absolutely impossible to evolve to 7 colors. Qing Sua's voice rang through Jian Chen's head as well. It was filled with some pity. All you can say is that the divine beast was born in the wrong place. If it was in our world, it would probably evolve to 7 colors in less than 10,000 years, said Ziying. His voice was also filled with regret, feeling pity for the divine beast. Ziying, Qing Sua, if the divine beast fully evolves, what level of strength will it possess? Jian Chen asked. He was curious to know more about the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast since the sword spirits paid so much attention to it. This was because he knew the sword spirits possessed a very great background. Ordinary things would never pique their interest. To the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast, the 7 lights are a type of bloodline. It's the indication of abilities and not a representation of strength. Only by fully evolving will it become a true divine beast. A few beasts with decent talent can reach 7 colors in 1,000 years, but their strength probably isn't even at the level of Saint Emperor in this world. Meanwhile, there are some 7-colored heaven-devouring beasts with only 1 or 2 colors that can reach the utmost peak through arduous cultivation. Their only weakness is that their natural abilities are nowhere near as powerful as true divine beasts, explained Ziying. Jian Chen gained an understanding with that explanation. If the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast could evolve into a true divine beast with 7 colors, it would be like the white tiger, possessing strength that exceeded its cultivation level and various unbelievable abilities. However, if it wanted to truly become powerful, it still needed to cultivate continuously. The 7-colored heaven-devouring beast is evolved from insects. It is not a species by itself. When it is young, it will follow various species of insects through different forms, but as it rapidly evolves and becomes a true divine beast, its final form is all the same. Back in our world, there was a vast number of insect species. Many of the magical beasts in this world are even part of these insect species. Our world is vastly different from the world you used to live in, Master. The insect species in Master's previous world probably did not even amount to 1,000th of all the species in our world, said Ziying. A few king beasts will definitely appear in every species, and the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast is one of the kings of the insects, Qing Sua explained. Obviously, the soaring ants had their own territory. Now that Jian Chen had left their land, the flood-like ants had all dispersed. Jian Chen gazed at the fist-sized, 7-colored heaven-devouring beast from afar. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes. Ziying, Qing Sua, how likely am I to tame the beast? Jian Chen asked. Ziying and Qing Sua did not reply immediately. They remained silent for a while before saying, this 7-colored heaven-devouring beast has already lived for a very long time. I can already sense pulses from a conscience. It already possesses intelligence. Coupled with the fact that it's no weaker than Master right now as well as its natural pridefulness, taming it is almost impossible. Jian Chen secretly sighed. The 7-colored heaven-devouring beast was different from the white tiger. The white tiger began following him soon after it was born. They had gone through many hardships together, so a good relationship had been established long ago. It would indeed be very difficult if he wanted to get the divine beast to follow him as easily as the white tiger. It was practically impossible. But it's not completely impossible, Qing Sua suddenly added. After a moment of silence, she said, the resources here are far too lacking, so it can't evolve to 7 colors. We may be able to use this fact, but now is not the time. We need to wait until Master has the ability to completely suppress it, and only then will there be a sliver of success. The only weakness of 7-colored heaven-devouring beasts are their souls. If you get the heavenly enchantress who is good with soul attacks to come along as well, your chances will greatly increase, said Ziying. Jian Chen knew that it was not time for him to try to tame the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast. He traveled far away and detoured around the soaring ant's territory. Afterward, he found a safe place to release Zhou Chuyun and the others from the Saint artifact. Appearing again, all of their wounds had been completely healed. Jian Chen had already secretly ordered the artifact spirit long ago to heal their wounds, so all of them were brimming with vitality. Zhou Ling and the other Heaven Saint Masters were still rather shaken, having not returned to their senses from the fright before. Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun both thanked Jianchen. They knew that if it were not for Jianchen's help, they would have been reduced to freezing corpses. Senior Yang Yutian, where was that place before? Why did I feel like it was another world? That world was actually filled with extremely pure radiant saint force that healed me in just a few seconds. It was miraculous, Zhou Lin asked Jianchen as she hugged his arm. Her face was filled with curiosity. That was a treasure. Jianchen gave a simple reply and did not go into detail. Afterward, he continued to follow Zhou Chuyun, who was searching for the divine water of the world. Everyone became much more cautious after the experience with the soaring ants. They remained alert at all times, unwilling to be careless. In the blink of an eye, Jianchen's group had stayed in the depths of the divine realm for 7 days. They had come across various dangers during that time. Not only were there feral beasts, there were also forces of nature. Not only did the forces of nature include the corrosive rain and soul-injuring lightning, even huge whirlwinds would also form from time to time. Once sucked into the wind, everything, no matter how tough, would be ripped to pieces. However, what was puzzling was that the whirlwinds would only impact foreign objects and could not destroy anything from the divine realm. During those 7 days, Jianchen did not find the divine water of the world, but he did obtain quite a few thunderstones. Jianchen only kept the thunderstones of the 15th or 16th star, handing the rest to Zhou Chuyun and the others. They became so happy that they struggled to keep their mouths closed. There were extremely few people in the depths of the divine realm, rarely did anyone set foot there. Jianchen's group had only run into less than 10 people while they had been there. During that time, Jianchen had asked Zhou Chuyun and the others about the Spirit Sea, but he learned nothing at all. The Spirit Sea was where the divine water of the world appeared. Finding the Spirit Sea would equate to finding the origins of the divine water. Jianchen's group had already approached the only tunnel into the depths. The adventurers in the surroundings gradually increased, ranging from Heaven Saint Masters to Saint Rulers. There would even be 1 or 2 Saint Kings from time to time. However, almost all of them maintained a radius of 100 kilometers. They wanted to try their luck. Other than Saint Kings, very few people dared to venture any further. Sigh, I've once entered the depths of the divine realm many times despite the hardships in search of the divine water, but I've always returned empty-handed. I heard that signs of it have now appeared in the depths, so I wish I can find it and completely heal the injuries of my soul. A disheveled old man murmured to himself as he walked around nearby. Jianchen's eyes narrowed when he saw the old man. He was a rather powerful Saint King at the 5th heavenly layer, someone who had just reached the 16th star. Jianchen followed Zhou Chuyun quickly as they traveled to the tunnel that connected the 2 regions. They came across more and more people and could even hear some of them discussing the matter about a supreme expert venturing into the mountains of the Sleeping Dragon a few days ago. I've finally found it. Suddenly, Zhou Chuyun at the very front excitedly called out. He shot to a 100-meter-wide hole in the ground nearby. The hole seemed to have been formed by the residue of a battle between experts, but the surrounding ground was extremely level, as if a battle had never occurred there. A huge tree was planted in the center of the hole. This was one of the signs I left behind, and I had even planted a tree native to the divine realm so it would be easier to recognize. In order to prevent people from destroying the signs I had left, I planted quite a few of them, and they all point to the location of the divine water. The other signs should be nearby. Let's look for them quickly. We still can't find the location with this sign alone. Zhou Chuyun explained before immediately heading off to search for the other signs. Very soon, Zhou Chuyun found the other signs and verified where the divine water of the world was. He immediately hurried off with Jianchen and the others. At the same time, Lan Mo had passed through the tunnel with the experts of the 100-footed clan. He had used a secret technique to confirm the location of the Blue Sky adventurers before pursuing. Right after the people of the 100-footed clan had left, the experts of the Huangdao clan appeared nearby. They had discovered the tracks of the 100-footed clan long ago, tailing them secretly by completely erasing their presences. Looks like we only need to follow the people from the 100-footed clan to find where the divine water is. This really does not take any effort at all. Everyone, hide well and don't get too close, sneered an old man. They continued to silently tail the people of the 100-footed clan from behind. Chapter 11:23 Brains over Brawn. Jianchen followed Zhou Chuyun with the Blue Sky adventurers as they searched for the signs that had been left behind. Zhou Chuyun was very smart. He had left more than 20 signs that pointed to the location of the divine water, but all of the locations varied. It was impossible for other people to learn anything from them, leaving only Zhou Chuyun to read them. Jianchen and the others followed the signs by changing directions from time to time. They killed the few feral beasts that had come to bother them, traveling close to 100 kilometers before stopping. They carefully hid before a large rock. 5 kilometers ahead, more than 10 feral beasts stood in a circle. They did not move at all, as if they were petrified. A brutal presence radiated from them, and many weaker beasts dared not to get close to them. All the beasts were like monsters. They ranged from 10 meters tall and 20 to 30 meters long, while the smallest ones were the size of tigers, only 2 meters long. Although their sizes varied dramatically, they all possessed extremely great strength. They were all at the 15th star, and one of them was even at the 16th star. An azure, walnut-sized liquid hovered 2 meters above the ground in the center of them. It had been locked there by a powerful energy. Fantastic! The divine water really is here, and it hasn't been devoured by those beasts. The heavens must be smiling on me. Zhou Chuyun became excited. The divine water is actually only the size of a walnut. That's already quite a lot. Almost all of the divine water that has appeared before is thumb-sized. Lu Jun sighed in surprise as his breathing became ragged. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My God, there's actually 18 beasts. I remember there were only 13 when we came here before. There's 5 more now. Zhou Lin counted the beasts quietly from afar. Jianchen stared fixedly at the unmoving beasts as his heart surged. This was because he could actually see some glimmers of intelligence in the eyes of the beasts, which really shocked him. All the beasts had actually gained weak intelligence. It was not much, but it was enough to flood Jianchen with disbelief. These beasts were far weaker than the violet serpent dragon at the top of the mountains. The serpent dragon did not possess any intelligence, while they did despite their strength. It was clearly illogical. These beasts seemed to be locked in a stalemate. They all want to devour the divine water, but they dare not to move recklessly, Jianchen said with a soft voice. That's right. They've maintained this situation for quite some time already. They were already like this when I came here last time. I never thought the situation would remain the same other than the fact that 5 extra beasts came, Zhou Chuyun softly replied. Why do I feel that these feral beasts have intelligence? Are the rumors true? The beasts of the divine realm will gain a little bit of intelligence after consuming the divine water. Have these beasts all consumed some of the water in the past? Lu Jun wondered while full of doubt. That's just far too wasteful. Such precious water has actually been devoured by a bunch of beasts, a member of the Blue Sky adventurers added. Jianchen was already prepared to move. He drew the emperor armament from his space ring and said to Zhou Chuyun, I'll go get the divine water. You all back off a little. Esteemed warrior, you have to be careful. You will be fighting 18 powerful beasts that have gained some intelligence after all, Zhou Chuyun said in concern. What? Just as Jianchen wanted to move, 2 great roars suddenly rang in the distance. The sound was extremely loud, where sound waves rolled out thunderously. They caused the entire divine realm to tremble slightly. Heavy footsteps rang out and a huge, 100-meter-tall ape walked over carrying a 40-meter-long axe. With every step, the earth shook like there was an earthquake. A smaller, 2-meter-tall ape sat on its other shoulder. It was clearly its child, and behind the huge ape was a 20-meter-tall one. The 2 of them made their way to the divine water as one followed the other. Jianchen's expression immediately changed. The huge ape at the very front was actually at the great perfection of Saint King, while the one behind it was at the 9th heavenly layer. Such a powerful combination was virtually invincible in the divine realm. Jianchen suddenly glanced at the giant axe on the ape's shoulder, And he was shocked yet again. It was actually an emperor armament. A huge ape at great perfection of Saint King with intelligence and an emperor armament. This, Jian Chen's mouth felt dry. The ape clearly was not something he could deal with. Even though he believed the ape could not use all the power of the emperor armament, it was already shocking enough. The 18 beasts around the water became restless. They could feel the strength of the ape and fear appeared in all their eyes. Some of them had even slowly backed off, wanting to give up on the water. The huge ape at the front strode toward the 18 beasts. It roared at the sky and firmly wielded the huge axe, chopping at the closest beast. The beast produced a furious roar. It opened its mouth and spat out a ball of extremely powerful energy. With a massive boom, the ball of energy crumpled before the axe. The axe then continued toward the beast without slowing, splitting its entire body and head in two. A 15-star feral beast had just been killed off by the huge ape with a single strike and without even being able to cry out. The huge ape's eyes were dyed a brutal red. It already possessed a certain amount of intelligence, but it was still a bloodthirsty feral beast. It did not plan on letting the other 17 beasts go after killing one. It continued to swing its axe at the remaining beasts. The other beasts seemed to sense the ape's killing intent as well. They all growled furiously and several of them immediately lunged at the ape in unison. They all used their greatest abilities. The huge ape did not show any fear against the beasts and instead excitedly let out a roar. It handed its child to the ape behind it before rushing into the beasts with its huge axe. It was extremely courageous. The other ape was at the 9th heavenly layer of Saint King, but it did not help out. Instead, it backed off and watched from afar. Many of the beasts had now shifted their attention from the divine water of the world to the huge ape. One of them opened its mouth and lunged at the divine water, wanting to devour it during the messy situation. But at this moment, a huge axe descended from the sky like a bolt of lightning. It beheaded the feral beast and blood sprayed into the air. The battle was extremely intense. The furious roars and deafening booms echoed very far away, alerting all the experts of the divine realm. Immediately, many of them hurried over from all directions. Of course, there were a few cowardly experts who instead fled in the opposite direction. The giant ape fought against more than 10 feral beasts all on its own with the emperor armament. Not only did it fight quickly and skillfully, it had gained the upper hand. It swung the emperor armament widely, becoming more and more drawn into the battle as it fought. The huge ape could not use the power hidden within the emperor armament, but even with that being the case, the huge ape was still able to display its terrifying might by using its supreme strength and the toughness of the emperor armament. To the ape, the emperor armament was like an indestructible metal pole. It could withstand its own power. Jian Qin, Zhou Chuyun, and the others watched from afar. All of them were shocked, stunned by the supreme power of the giant ape. The giant apes clearly come for the divine water of the world. It probably wants to feed it to its child. It'll be troublesome now. Looks like we can only watch the water go to waste now. Zhou Chuyun's face was filled with pity. Why don't we retreat? Once the ape deals with all those beasts, it'll probably charge at us. We don't even have the ability to flee before this giant ape. Deep worry shrouded Lu Jun's face. Senior Yang Yutian, what are your plans? Zhou Chuyun glanced at Jian Chen. He clearly wanted to go with Jian Chen's decision. Jian Chen stared fixedly at the two apes. He was extremely stern and said with a deep voice, I have to obtain this divine water. Jian Chen had already made up his mind regarding the water. Although he could not deal with such a powerful ape, there was still Rue Jin and the other two in the Saint artifact. However, he did not want to rely on them unless he was truly without any other choice. Senior, that ape's far too powerful, and there's another one with similar strength behind. Can you deal with the two all by yourself? Zhou Chuyun asked. Pondering a little, Jian Chen said, I'll come up with a plan to lead the two apes away. Once I lead them far away, immediately retrieve the water as fast as you can, and then leave. Jian Chen pulled out the Saint artifact after discussing the plan with Zhou Chuyun and the others. He then hid in the artifact and burrowed underground to approach the battlefield. The battle lasted for a while, but in the end, all the beasts were killed by the giant ape. Blood dyed the ground red. The giant ape rested the emperor armament on its shoulder as it crouched down, staring at the walnut-sized liquid below. It slowly extended a thick finger toward the divine water. The female ape behind it also stared unblinkingly at the water. Happiness crossed its face while the little ape on its shoulder was emotionless. It had still yet to develop intelligence. At this moment, a golden light appeared. Jianqin appeared silently behind the female ape. He grabbed the child with lightning speed before kicking off the ape's shoulder and shooting off. He ran off into the distance without looking back as he left behind a chain of afterimages. He pushed the illusory flash to the utmost limit. At the same time, a golden streak of light shot out of the ground. It quickly caught up to Jianqin and disappeared into his forehead. The two apes immediately became utterly enraged now that their child had been taken. They no longer bothered with the divine water, immediately pursuing Jianqin. Chapter 11:24. Who dares challenge me? 1. Jianqin ran off as fast as he could. Although the depths of the divine realm were littered with danger that could threaten 16-star experts, Jianqin was without fear right now. He did not worry about any of the danger he would face at all. Jianqin held the baby ape against his shoulder. It had only recently reached the 11th star, so it was not enough to threaten Jianqin. Even with it putting up a desperate struggle, it was unable to break free from Jianqin's vice grip. The two huge apes furiously ran behind Jianqin. They angrily roared as their eyes glowed red. The gazes they used to look at Jianqin were filled with rage, and with every step, a heavy thud would ring out. The earth violently shook. Even though they were at the 9th heavenly layer and great perfection of Saint King, they did not possess any grasp of the mysteries of the world and were unable to use spatial force. As a result, they were much slower than Jianqin even though they were far more powerful than him, so they were unable to catch up. Jianqin maintained a constant distance between him and the two apes, planning to draw them far away. Suddenly, a beast loudly roared out. A 20-meter-long, winged, scorpion-like feral beast shot toward Jianqin. Its eyes were full and filled with a bloodthirsty light, clearly having not awakened with intelligence. The feral beast was already at the 15th star. Although it possessed a pair of wings, it could not fly, but it did move very fast, much faster than the two stronger apes. It was even vaguely faster than Jianqin. With a flash, the beast's venomous stinger shot with lightning-like speed toward Jianqin. It flickered with blue light. Jianqin dodged the attack masterfully before grabbing the stinger with one hand and swinging as hard as he could. Immediately, the scorpion was flung toward the two apes. The scorpion's huge body smashed into the ground and created a crater. It immediately climbed back to its feet as it stared at Jianqin with its bloodthirsty eyes. It continued to chase Jianqin by flapping its wings. But at this very moment, a huge axe fell from the sky. With a violent boom, it landed heavily on the scorpion's back, passing through to its chest. The scorpion was nailed down by the axe, which the giant ape then raised. It carried its axe on its shoulder with the scorpion pinned on it, chasing after Jianqin with huge strides. It did not even look at the struggling scorpion on its axe. Jianqin felt secretly shocked inside when he saw this. The ape was just far too brutal and far too powerful. A 15th star feral beast had been dealt with so easily. It did not know any Saint King abilities, but Jianqin believed that the ape would be difficult to deal with even if a Saint King at great perfection were to fight it. Jianqin fled as the two apes chased him, having run 1,000 kilometers. He came across a few adventurers from time to time, and they all became stunned from what they saw. There were also some predatorial feral beasts that had yet to awaken their intelligence who wanted to eat Jianqin, but they were ripped to shreds by the angered apes without Jianqin needing to do anything. After drawing the two apes away, Zhou Chuyun and the others did not leave their hiding places immediately. Instead, they observed carefully and secretly. Only after confirming that the situation was calm and that the two apes could not return in a short amount of time, Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun carefully made their way past the beast corpses. They arrived before the walnut-sized droplet of divine water with faces filled with excitement and emotion. Those two terrifying beasts should be returning very soon. Zhou Chuyun, retrieve the divine water quickly. I'll go check over the corpses of the beasts to see if there's any thunderstones, Lu Jun said with a deep voice. Although the apes were now far away, they dared not to stay for too long. Zhou Chuyun nodded and immediately pulled out a jade bottle from his space ring. Lu Jun went to check through the corpses of the other beasts. Fucking hell, there's a powerful energy around the divine water protecting it. It must have been left by those beasts who were locked in a stalemate. I can't retrieve the water with this layer of energy, Zhou Chuyun suddenly cursed. His face became filled with worry and panic. What? How can that happen? Lu Jun's face also abruptly changed as he was checking the corpses. He arrived before the divine water in a flash to examine it carefully. With a great groan, he said, "This layer of energy is very powerful. It's been left behind by a 15th star feral beast to prevent the divine water from drifting away. We will need quite a lot of time to remove it. What do we do? We don't have much time, so we need to think of an idea quick." Zhou Chuyun became overwhelmed by anxiety. At this moment, a figure quickly shot toward where Zhou Chuyun was standing. He moved extremely quickly and kept his presence hidden without any part leaking out. He was on high alert. The figure first observed the situation carefully by hiding in the distance. Although he was surprised by the corpses of the powerful beasts littered on the ground, he could tell with a single glance that they had all died in a brutal fight with one another and were not killed by another person. At the same time, he saw that Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun were only saint rulers, so he did not attach any importance to them. He immediately became fearless and swaggered over from the distance. He laughed aloud. "There's actually divine water here. This is fantastic. I've spent 3 whole years in the depths of the divine realm, but I've failed to find any. I came here out of curiosity after hearing the intense beast roars before, but I never thought I'd come across some of the water. The heavens are smiling upon me." The person was a skinny, middle-aged man. He possessed an ordinary appearance and his skin was deep blue. He was a member of the sea race. He seemed rather at ease, but caution filled him inside. He constantly glanced around to prevent other experts from suddenly attacking him in surprise. At the same time, a vast presence radiated from him, as a form of warning towards any people hidden around him. He could tell with a single glance that the beasts had died in a struggle with each other with his experience. It was impossible for other adventurers to cause similar wounds. "Shit, it's a 15th star expert," Zhou Chuyun growled. Both his face and Lu Jun's became extremely ugly. Jian Chen was no longer present, and it was impossible for them to fend off a 15th star expert just by themselves. The middle-aged man walked towards the two of them as the tremendous pressure pressed towards Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun like a mountain. He sneered, "You luck adventurers, I never thought you'd get here before me. But it's extremely unfortunate that I also need this divine water, so if you don't want to die, leave it behind and piss off. Don't blame me for not giving you a chance to run later." Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun both became rather pale. They were now stuck in a dilemma where they could do nothing. "Esteemed warrior, this divine water already has an owner. Its owner is a 16th star expert, someone who can rival Hall elders. Are you certain you want to steal from him?" Zhou Chuyun clasped his hands. Right now, he could only hope to deter the middle-aged man by mentioning Jian Chen. The man's face froze by an undetectable amount when he heard that, but he recovered instantly. He stared at Zhou Chuyun sharply and jeered, "A supreme expert who can rival 16th star experts? Haha, do you think I'm that easy to trick? Cut the bullshit in front of me, or I'll finish you right here. Esteemed warrior, everything I've said is true. The beasts here were killed by 2 huge apes. That experts left to draw the apes away, and he ordered us to retrieve the water for him before he had left. If you plan on taking the divine water of the world, please be prepared to deal with him," said Zhou Chuyun. The middle-aged man's face changed slightly. He asked, "What are the characteristics of the apes? Tell me." Zhou Chuyun immediately described everything he had seen. The middle-aged man immediately became uneasy when he heard all that, glancing past all the wounds on the feral beasts. "The expert took us directly through the mountains of the sleeping dragon. At the very top, he killed an extremely powerful violet serpent dragon," added Lu Jun. He mentioned what Jianchen had done in the past to scare off the man. The man's face changed once more. Recently, he had indeed heard the continuous roars of beasts from the mountains. There had been a terrifyingly powerful expert who crossed through there, so he basically believed everything Zhou Chuyun had said after connecting what the two of them had said. The light in the man's eyes flickered uneasily. After a while of hesitation, a powerful killing intent flashed through his eyes. He said severely, "So what if it's true? That supreme expert's not present. No matter how great that person's abilities are, he will not know that it was me if I killed the two of you and ran off with the water." The man's steps sped up. He was ready to kill. Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun's faces changed drastically. Just as they wanted to run, figures flicked in the distance again. Over 10 people shot over with extremely great speed. All of them erased their presences and moved silently, unwilling to alert the beasts up ahead. The people clearly did not belong to a single group. They stood in different locations and were all on guard, filled with caution. There were actually 3 Saint Kings among them. The middle-aged man gave up on killing Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun. He stared at the people behind with a sunken face. Their arrival had ruined what he wanted to do. Divine water, there's actually divine water of the world. There's actually divine water of the world here. Fantastic, I've finally found it. A few people cried out involuntarily when they saw the water. All of them rejoiced. With a gentle breeze, another 4 people appeared. They were 4 old men. Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun shivered inside. They were familiar with the old men. They were the same 4 people who were in the cave before and had almost begun fighting with Jianchen. It's actually divine water of the world. What an unexpected harvest, one of the 4 old men said huskily. Chapter 11:25. Who dares challenge me? 2. The battle between the huge ape and the other beasts was just far too intense. It could be described as earth-shaking and devastating, disturbing the entire central area of the divine realm. Thus, it attracted the attention of many experts. More and more people arrived. There were several 15th-star experts, which was a horrible situation for Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun. They were only at the 13th star, not even saint rulers at the 5th heavenly layer. They did not even have the right to speak to the 15th-star experts. The 2 of you get away from the divine water immediately. A treasure like that isn't something you can possess. Otherwise, you'll be paying for the consequences, a person said to Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun. He was a hunchbacked old man. He seemed ancient and his voice was husky, giving people a powerless feeling. However, he was one of the most powerful people present. Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun looked at each other. They were troubled. They were now stuck between a rock and a hard place. The 4 old men who had met Jianchen in the cave all gathered their attention on Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun. Light flickered in their eyes as they remained silent. They would peek around with the corner of their eyes from time to time, and they seemed to be filled with caution and fear. Warriors, the truth is that this portion of divine water already has an owner. Zhou Chuyun was without choice. All he could do was bring up Jianchen again in hopes of deterring these experts. He had nothing else he could do. Brats, cut the bullshit in front of me. The beasts here clearly killed each other over the divine water of the world, and the 2 of you just got lucky, having made it just in time. There's no supreme expert who can rival a hall elder here. That's all just a lie you 2 ignorant brats have spun. Don't you think so too, everyone? The old man sneered. Yeah, there's no supreme expert here at all. The beasts clearly killed each other if you look at the wounds. They weren't killed by some supreme expert. In my opinion, these mere 13th-star brats have told a lie to us because they want to take the divine water for themselves. They just want us to back off so they can benefit. The middle-aged man who had arrived first added. He was not bold enough to offend the expert Zhou Chuyun was talking about, but instead cleverly dismissed what Zhou Chuyun had said as a lie. 4 seniors, you've seen that supreme expert before, right? He was the one who killed his way through the mountains as he led us. He killed one of the most powerful existences on the peak and crossed through the mountains, Zhou Chuyun said to the 4 old men. He wanted to show that he was not lying by using the 4 old men as witnesses. The 4 old men said nothing. All they did was stand silently as they stared at the water. Gleams of light flickered through their eyes as they hesitated. Their silent behavior, where they did not openly admit anything, basically confirmed that Zhou Chuyun was telling the truth. As time went on, more and more experts gathered. Very soon, the number of experts reached into the 100, but most of them were only saint rulers. There were only a small number of saint kings. Ah, Zhou Chuyun, I never thought you'd be here as well. This must be the divine water you discovered last time. You were unwilling to work with me before, but haven't I still found you in the end? Laughter rang from the crowd. Lan Nemo had arrived, and the group of experts from the 100-footed clan followed him from behind. Lan Nemo had become very confident now that the people of the 100-footed clan were with him. Although there were quite a few 15-star experts present, he still had the power to speak. Young Master Lan Nemo, it's actually you. I never thought you'd arrive so quickly. Zhou Chuyun's face changed. He glanced past the people by Lan Mo's side and actually discovered all of them to be at the 14th star. There were even 2 of them where he could not see their strength, which immediately made him heavy-hearted. The divine water. It really is the divine of the world. Lan Nemo, you've done well this time. Once we return, our 100-footed clan will definitely treat you well. An old man from the 100-footed clan became extremely excited, as if the divine water was already his. The 100-footed clan? Is it that 100-footed clan of Diork City? Zhou Chuyun involuntarily asked. He knew the 100-footed clan's strength extremely well. The Lanshan clan possessed a 15th-star ancestor, but they could only claim a third of Divine City. On the other hand, Diork City was a powerful and prosperous city, much greater than Divine City, yet the 100-footed clan possessed supreme power there. They were the greatest clan in the city, so it was possible to imagine just how powerful they were. The old man said to Zhou Chuyun, because you found the divine water of the world, my 100-footed clan will not make things hard for you, and will even reward you. Give the divine water to us immediately. The old man of the 100-footed clan was extremely arrogant. He paid no attention to the other Saint Kings present. As expected, many Saint Kings' expressions immediately changed after they heard what the old man had said. A sliver of coldness flashed through their eyes. Only the 4 old men who had seen Jianchen before remained standing there nonchalantly. They said nothing and acted as complete bystanders. Haven't you, the 100-footed clan, gone too far? You don't even view these 15th-star experts with respect at all, a 14th-star expert said coldly. He obviously had a powerful backing to be courageous enough to go against 15th-star experts. With that, the old man of the 100-footed clan sneered. He pulled out a fist-sized quaking thunder from his space ring, and an extremely violent, vast energy immediately filled the surroundings. Everyone's expressions changed. A 16th-star quaking thunder. A Saint King cried out involuntarily as he began to feel fear. Correct, this is a 16th-star quaking thunder, and I have more than just one of them. If you all want to try out the quaking thunder's power, feel free to come at me, sneered the old man. The 16th-star quaking thunder was enough to deter everyone in the divine realm because 16th-star experts rarely appeared there. The divine water of the world already has an owner. He's a 16th-star expert. Zhou Chuyun reluctantly explained, you must be talking about that young man in the tavern. He's a 15th-star expert at most. Zhou Chuyun, you can stop trying to scare me, sneered Lan Nemo. His eyes were filled with killing intent. The old man who held the quaking thunder looked at Zhou Chuyun. He coldly said, bring the divine water over immediately. Before 16th-star quaking thunders, that 15th-star expert you speak of is nothing. Just a single one is enough to heavily injure him. Many 15th-star experts in the surroundings stopped talking. A 16th-star quaking thunder was enough to overwhelm them with fear. No one wanted to test out its power. Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun hesitated, but they did nothing even after quite a long time. The old man became displeased. He snorted, ingrates. Danner, go get the divine water. Yes, Grand Elder, replied a 14th-star expert of the 100-footed clan. He immediately walked to the divine water. Extending a finger, A strand of energy shot out from the tip of his finger and ate away the layer of energy left behind by the beasts. Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun watched helplessly. They could do nothing. All of the people from the Hunt-footed clan focused their attention on the divine water. They were at their wits' end since the water was just far too important for their clan. The middle-aged man who had approached the water was at the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler. He was far more powerful than Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun, so he removed the energy very soon. Afterward, he pulled out a jade bottle from his space ring to store the water in. At this moment, over 10 people shot over from afar. The leader shot a powerful sword chi at the Grand Elder of the 100-footed clan with a swing of his hand. "It's the people of the Huangdao clan." The Grand Elder cried out. He immediately passed the quaking thunder to his left hand and a silver lance appeared in his right. With a streak of silver light, the lance destroyed the sword chi. The party from the Huangdao clan was no smaller than the 100-footed clan. They both possessed 2 15-star Saint Kings and a great battle erupted between them very soon. 2 Saint Rulers from the Huangdao clan quickly charged at the middle-aged man who was retrieving the water. One of them kept the man busy while the other one quickly pulled out a bottle to store the water away. The surrounding space suddenly froze at that moment. All the space within a radius of 10 meters from the water was frozen, and the 3 Saint Rulers were all immobilized. Even with their strength at the 9th heavenly layer, they could not break free. The skinny old man had suddenly rushed up to the divine water of the world and stored it in his own jade bottle with lightning-like speed. As the people of the 100-footed clan and Huangdao clan fought, the Saint Kings, who originally watched the scene unfold, finally obtained a chance. "You're courting death for stealing an item of our 100-footed clan." The Grand Elder of the 100-footed clan fell into utter rage. At that moment, the Saint King of the Huangdao clan stopped fighting with him as well. They charged toward the skinny old man in unison. The quaking thunder in the Grand Elder's hand began to flicker. This was the sign that it was about to be used. Seeing the quaking thunder, the skinny old man's heart immediately skipped a beat. He tossed the jade bottle toward the Saint King from the Huangdao clan and said with a husky voice, "I don't want it anymore. You can have it." The Saint King caught the jade bottle, but before he could celebrate, the quaking thunder from the Grand Elder landed on him. Chapter 11:26. Who dares challenge me? Boom. The quaking thunder exploded thunderously the moment it struck the Saint King from the Huangdao clan. It was so loud that it temporarily deafened everyone present, and a terrifying energy immediately erupted, striking the Saint King like a heavy hammer. A 16th star quaking thunder contained the full-powered strike of a 16th star expert, and its power would vaguely exceed the strength of the person who had charged it up since it had been suppressed. Only experts at the same level of cultivation could withstand a quaking thunder. Blood shot out of the Saint King's mouth. He immediately paled and was blown back by the violent energy. He landed several kilometers away in a horrible condition. "I'll cut down a pillar of the Huangdao clan today." "Gus, you shouldn't have come here," the Grand Elder sternly said. Killing intent flickered in his eyes as he rushed over with his lance. He wanted to finish off the 15th star expert. "Gus, we can't hold back anymore." The other old man of the Huangdao clan called out as he fought against a Saint King of the 100-footed clan. With that, a sliver of determination appeared in the eyes of Gus, who had been injured by the quaking thunder. As the Grand Elder charged over, he pulled out a fist-sized quaking thunder from his space ring and immediately triggered it. The quaking thunder began to flash with light as a terrifying energy unsteadily pulsed out. "What? You actually have a 16th star quaking thunder as well?" The Grand Elder's expression changed, and he came to a screeching stop. He immediately retreated. At the same time, Gus threw the quaking thunder. It shot towards the Grand Elder as a streak of light with lightning-like speed. The Grand Elder dodged as hard as he could, but the sliver of presence from Gus within the quaking thunder had already locked onto him. It tailed him, and he could not shake it off. There was the unstable pulsing of powerful energy in the quaking thunder as well, so even freezing space could not stop it. The unstable pulsing was more than enough to break through any frozen space. In the end, the Grand Elder clenched his teeth and the lance in his hand exploded with a blinding light. He stabbed at the quaking thunder as hard as he could. Boom! Another deafening sound rang out. Although the quaking thunder had failed to land on the Grand Elder, it was still not pleasant to fend off a full-powered strike from a 16th star expert. He became quite injured as residual blood clung to the side of his lips. Imperial Sword Chi. With a furious roar, the Saint King of the Huangdao clan stood up. The giant sword in his hand shined with a blinding light, illuminating the surroundings. It was as dazzling as the sun. At the same time, a pressure from the surroundings descended from the sky, falling onto the Grand Elder like a mountain. The Tian-level Saint technique of the Huangdao clan. The Grand Elder's face changed, and he became extremely stern. The Tian-level Saint techniques of the Sea Realm were equivalent to Saint-tier battle skills on the Tian-Yuan continent. This one was being cast by a Saint King, so the power was enough to completely annihilate the surroundings. Gus pointed with his sword and a golden sword chi immediately shot through the air with a terrifying force. It radiated with destructive energy as it flew toward the Grand Elder. The sword chi glistened with a golden light, dyeing the entire world a cold color. It possessed vast power and was almost unstoppable since it was filled with supreme force. The Grand Elder roared at the sky as his hair danced about despite the absence of wind. He immediately turned into a centipede-like sea beast that had several hundred feet. He was coated by a layer of pitch-black scales as 9 sharp spikes extended from his back. Suddenly, one of the spikes broke off and quickly shot at the golden sword chi. This was his greatest trump card. He had basically used a powerful attack by mutilating himself. Each spike was forged by his essence blood and was extremely powerful. They were much stronger than his own strength and could easily injure a Saint King that was 1 cultivation level higher. Although the Grand Elder of the 100-footed clan was a Saint King, he did not possess any Tian-level Saint techniques. All he could do was use something like this to face the attack head-on. Tian-level Saint techniques could not be comprehended with strength alone. They relied on the comprehension level of the person and that person's compatibility with the Saint technique. A few clever and talented people could grasp Tian-level Saint techniques at Saint Ruler, while there were others who could not comprehend a single one even after spending most of their lives as Saint Kings. Creating Tian-level Saint techniques was even more difficult than comprehending one. Since ancient times, countless Saint Kings have appeared, but an extremely low number of them ever created a Tian-level Saint technique. They could be described as virtually non-existent. The Imperial Sword Chi was a Tian-level Saint technique near the stronger end, so its power was not something that the Grand Elder's trump card could rival. When the Golden Sword Chi and Spike collided, the two of them became locked in a stalemate. After some time, the spike turned to dust, and the Golden Sword Chi continued toward the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder bellowed and another 2 spikes shot toward the Golden Sword Chi. The Sword Chi finally disappeared, in the end, after the 3 spikes. I'd like to see how many times you can block it. Imperial Sword Chi. Gus sneered and cast the Tian-level Saint technique a second time. A Golden Sword Chi shot out again. Casting Tian-level Saint techniques will exhaust you. I'd like to see how many times you can cast it. The Grand Elder did not give in and gave a cold response. Without any hesitation, he shot out another 2 spikes at the Sword Chi. After cutting down most of the Sword Chi's power, he dispersed the weakened Sword Chi with a full-powered attack in the end. He had now used 5 of his spikes, only 4 remained. The Grand Elder and Gus had already become fully drawn into the battle. They began to fight in an attempt to take each other's lives without holding anything back. Their battle was the most intense out of all the ones present. The other 2 Saint Kings from both clans had always been fighting while the Saint Rulers clashed with one another. Originally, the enmity between the Huangdao clan and 100-footed clan was already irresolvable. Their 2 ancestors were currently in seclusion since they were heavily injured. Since the 2 parties had met, they naturally began to blaze with hatred and began to try to take each other's lives. Gus had already cast the Tian-level Saint technique 4 times in a row. His heavy wounds deepened and rapidly worsened. He could not help but vomit a mouthful of blood. He was running out of power. The 100-meter-long Grand Elder had already used up all of his 9 spikes. He returned to human form and sneered with a pale face, "You've finally run out of power to cast your Tion-level Saint techniques. You will die now." With that, the Grand Elder pulled out 3 quaking thunders from his space ring and threw them at Gus. These were 15th star quaking thunders. They were not as powerful as a 16th star quaking thunder, but they still could deal an attack from a 15th star expert. The heavily injured Grand Elder could no longer display his peak strength, so he could only make it up by using the quaking thunders. "Gus!" The other Saint King of the Huangdao clan called out. He wanted to help Gus, but he was obstructed by his opponent. He was unable to break free from the battle. With a massive explosion, Gus was reduced to a bloody mess. One of his arms had broken, and the jade bottle which contained the divine water shattered. All of the water inside splashed out, but it did not fall to the ground. Instead, it floated in the air, having broken into countless droplets, like rain, by the violent ripples of energy. The Grand Elder of the 100-footed clan took advantage of this moment to attack again. His lance turned into a streak of silver light as he stabbed toward Gus' forehead. He wanted to wipe out Gus' soul. The other Saint King of the Huangdao clan roared out in sorrow, but he was in no situation to consider for others. All he could do was watch helplessly as Gus was killed. Killing off Gus, the Grand Elder immediately began to collect the scattered divine water, returning it all into a single jade bottle. Something suddenly happened. A middle-aged man silently appeared before the Grand Elder. He chopped off the Grand Elder's arm with the jade bottle and grabbed it before quickly retreating into the distance. Chapter 11:27. Who dares challenge me? For something suddenly happened. A middle-aged man silently appeared before the Grand Elder. He chopped off the Grand Elder's arm with the jade bottle and grabbed it before quickly retreating into the distance. At a crucial moment, one of the Saint Kings, who had been spectating from afar, finally ran out of patience and decided to interfere. With his arms severed, the Grand Elder of the 100-footed clan cried out miserably. He yelled furiously, "You must be sick of living for stealing something of our 100-footed clan. We'll wipe out your entire clan." As he said that, he used his remaining arm to pull out 2 quaking thunders, and he threw them at the middle-aged man who had stolen the divine water of the world. They were all 15th star quaking thunders. Although the 100-footed clan had brought many quaking thunders with them this time, they only possessed one at the 16th star. The rest were all at the 15th star, so they were bluffing earlier. The Saint King who had stolen the divine water was at the 4th heavenly layer. He stood at the 15th star and was only a step away from the 16th. Unless he was caught off guard, it would be very difficult to injure him with 15th star quaking thunders. After setting off the quaking thunders from afar, he continued to flee into the distance without even looking back. "My soul is injured and I need this divine water of the world to recover. Sir, you should give it to me." At this moment, a disheveled old man silently appeared. He just happened to block the middle-aged man. His shriveled hand gently shot out with a layer of energy. The palm strike did not seem to possess any power, but all Saint Kings could feel an extremely forceful and tough energy present inside. The middle-aged man's face grew cold. He hurled a punch with vast energy, striking the palm of the old man. However, he felt like he had hit cotton when his fist made contact. The supreme energy in his fist had nowhere to go. It had mostly been absorbed by the old man's palm strike, and after that, a brutal energy leaked out of the palm. It struck the middle-aged man and knocked him away, where his entire hand had almost been shattered. The heaven-ending palm. "You're the tyrant of the West Sea, Nicholas." The middle-aged man's face slightly changed. Although they were at the same level of cultivation, the middle-aged man became extremely afraid. Nicholas was a famed expert. Not only was his cultivation method special, reaching the level where firmness existed within softness, he could display supreme battle prowess. He himself was an extremely powerful sea beast of antiquity as well, possessing extraordinary talent and great strength. There was even a rumor in the past that he had killed a 5th heavenly layer Saint King when he was only at the 3rd heavenly layer, causing countless people in the sea realm to fall into an uproar. His strength in the sea realm was basically unparalleled among people of similar cultivation levels. "Since you know my name, why don't you leave behind the divine water?" Nicholas asked with a husky voice. "You're renowned in the West Sea. I'm obviously not your opponent when you were at your peak, but your soul's injured now, so your strength had been greatly affected. Why should I fear you?" The middle-aged man responded with a deep voice. "Hee, my soul may be injured, but my strength is unaffected. You're unwilling to hand up the divine water, so it looks like I can only retrieve it from you myself." Nicholas coldly chuckled before quickly charging toward the middle-aged man. On another side, the experts of the 100-footed clan and Huangdao clan remained locked in battle. They hadn't stopped fighting because of the divine water. Their resentment for each other had slowly overcome their reasoning. The divine water had already changed hands, so the surrounding Saint Kings obviously stopped paying any attention to them. They all turned to Nicholas and the other person as their eyes flickered with a gleam of light. Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun had retreated to several kilometers away long ago. Blood dripped from the corner of their mouths, having been injured by the ripples of battle. The current situation had already developed to a point where they could not change it. Although Nicholas possessed an injured soul, he was still extremely powerful. He clashed with the fourth heavenly layer Saint King 100 times already, beating the middle-aged man to the point where he was heavily injured and bloodied. A visible hole had even appeared in his chest, created by a palm strike from Nicholas. Killing intent had already grown densely in Nicholas' eyes. He immediately appeared before the middle-aged man, and he struck his head mercilessly as a dense layer of soft energy coated his hand. "Nicholas, I'll give you the divine water since you want it." The middle-aged man finally gave in and threw the divine water near the crowd of people. With that, Nicholas immediately gave up on his fight with the middle-aged man. He shot after the divine water with lightning-like speed, crossing 100 meters instantly and grabbing the jade battle. 3 Saint Kings began to move. Vast energy wrapped around them as they attacked Nicholas in unison, beginning an intense battle with him. Nicholas was extremely powerful. The power of his heaven-ending palm was unparalleled. Even while fighting equally with 3 Saint Kings, he vaguely appeared to have gained the upper hand. A few other Saint Kings watched the fight from a distance. They all became rather tempted to interfere when they saw this. Nicholas glanced around and sneered, "You're looking to die if you want to fight me with just your strength." Suddenly, Nicholas' eyes became filled with malevolence. Red light immediately glowed from his eyes, enveloping 2 of the people he was fighting and temporarily stunning them. It said that Nicholas' original form is a demonic dragon. That's his natural ability. It targets the soul and is impossible to guard against, a Saint King said with a deep voice as he watched from afar. With a flash, Nicholas suddenly appeared beside the 2 stunned Saint Kings. His shriveled hand struck their heads and smashed them in, wiping out their souls. The remaining Saint King immediately became utterly terrified. He had no interest in the battle anymore and turned around to flee. Nicholas did not pursue. He gazed at the Saint Kings who watched on rather threateningly before opening the bottle cap to drink the divine water. Many Saint Kings did nothing, having been stunned by Nicholas' strength. However, there were still some people who did not fear him. At that moment, the 4 old men stepped forward in unison. Pitch-black metal swords appeared in their hands. These were swords forged from an extremely tough meteorite that possessed odd inscriptions. They then swung out at the same time, sending 4 sword chi toward Nicholas. The sword chi was extremely sharp and possessed a presence that surged into the sky, vastly different from any ordinary sword chi. Nicholas' eyes grew cold. He shattered the sword chi with his palm strikes and sneered, "You for want to fight me? You're overestimating yourselves." Scorn filled Nicholas' eyes. The 4 old men were only at the 3rd heavenly layer. Their sword chi was very powerful, but it was nothing noteworthy to him. The 4 old men said nothing. They stood in a formation and charged up, embroiling in a great battle with Nicholas. They assisted each other in both attack and defense, retreating and advancing perfectly. They were extremely rhythmic, nowhere near as powerful as Nicholas yet able to fight him to a stalemate. They could even vaguely suppress him. I never thought that you four would actually know formations for joint attacks. I sure have underestimated you four, sneered Nicholas. His eyes became evil-looking once more and 2 streaks of red light shot out. Infinite sword formation. The 4 old men yelled and their metal swords layered upon each other to form a square. Their power actually joined together and a shocking sword chi shot out formed the center of the square, obliterating the red light from Nicholas' eyes. It continued toward Nicholas without weakening at all. Nicholas dodged the energy that was enough to destroy soul attacks. He stared at the 4 old men in disbelief and involuntarily cried out, "How is this possible? Your sword chi can repel my innate ability." Nicholas' innate ability was an attack that targeted the soul. It could catch people off guard, and in so many years of life and death battles, he would always use his innate ability to turn the tides. He had never suffered defeat. He had fought many battles against people with much greater cultivation than him and had killed so many experts who were stronger than him just with his innate talent. There was no one who could come out unscathed from the ability. The 4 old men remained cold and silent. They looked at one another and immediately changed their formation. They encircled Nicholas from 4 different locations and all launched an attack with their full power at Nicholas. They actually forced him to retreat, and soon many vicious slashes littered his body. Nicholas also used everything he had. Surging energy leaked out of his body, but whenever he wanted to use his full strength to kill off one of them, the 3 others would strike out with a fatal attack, forcing him to give up on the offense and take up the defense. It was extremely annoying for him. This is a very powerful sword formation. Some of the Saint Kings in the distance saw through the attacks and cried out in surprise. The sword formation is extremely profound. If they didn't have the sword formation, it would have been impossible for the 4 of them to fight Nicholas even-handedly. Nicholas is a sea beast of antiquity who has killed people above him before after all, said the bloodied, middle-aged man. He was the same person who had stolen the divine water of the world and then had been injured by Nicholas. Supreme sword formation. One of the 4 old men cried out. They worked together very succinctly, pulling back their swords in unison. A powerful sword formation radiated from their bodies before surging into the sky. At that moment, the 4 of them seemed to have become swords that stood upright in the world. An eternal glow radiated from them, and in unison, their presences began to skyrocket. They reached the peak of the 4th heavenly layer in the blink of an eye, almost reaching the 5th. This was not their strength, but the strength of combining their powers through the sword formation. It allowed their powers to erupt for a short moment. Suddenly, the 4 of them moved. They left behind an illusionary afterimage where they had been standing and shot toward Nicholas at the same time with unbelievable speed. Spurt! 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 The 4 metal swords stabbed into Nicholas at the same time as a brutal sword chi erupted from the swords. It reduced Nicholas' body to a bloody mess. Just as Nicholas' soul wanted to flee, a terrifying suction appeared from the 4 metal swords. It actually drew his soul toward the metal swords before it was quartered and absorbed by the swords. No! Nicholas' terrifying howl of despair could vaguely be heard, but there was no more sound afterward. The old men remained as cold as before, slowly withdrawing their bloody swords. Afterward, they pulled out a towel to carefully wipe off the blood. The divine water of the world with Nicholas obviously entered their hands as well. Fear filled the eyes of the spectating Saint Kings. Nicholas' death had affected them greatly at a mental level. Nicholas' present strength was at the 4th heavenly layer of Saint King. He was strong enough to rival some new 16-star experts, yet he had actually been slain so easily by 4 old men of unknown origins. The 4 of them had even killed him unscathed, to everyone's disbelief. The experts of the Huangdao clan and Hundred-Footed clan remained locked in a death battle. They had completely given up on the divine water as their battle became extremely intense. It had reached a point where they would not stop until one side completely died. Leave the divine water. At this moment, a furious roar rang out from the distance. Jian Chen had finally returned. He left behind a blur as he ran, moving extremely quick. Chapter 11:28. Who dares challenge me? 5. Jian Qin shot over from the distance as his presence surged into the sky, causing the air to tremble. His eyes were cold and a chilling, killing intent flickered in them. It's Senior Yang Yutian. Fantastic, Senior Yang Yutian's finally returned. Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun both became filled with excitement while they hid in the distance. They seemed to have grasped a ray of hope in their moment of despair. The battle for the divine water had completely devolved into a fight between Saint Kings. They were in no shape to interfere and even lacked the right to speak. All they could do was watch as many Saint Kings fought over the divine water as if it was theirs already, which caused them to become extremely irritated and feel like they had been wronged. When they saw Yang Yutian return, they immediately became filled with energy. Who is this person? What a powerful presence! What an arrogant person! Even Nicholas of the West Sea has died. Is he stronger than Nicholas? Many people quickly glanced at Jian Qin. A few Saint Kings even sneered. They did not believe Jian Qin could win against the 4 mysterious old men with the metal swords. They thought he was just running to his death. The old men stood in a similar posture as before. They seemed to be at ease, but it was a different case in reality. They could use their sword formations at any moment. They all stared at Jian Qin as they frowned slightly and sternly. It's him. He's actually returned at this moment, said one of the old men. The 4 of them knew just how powerful Jian Qin was. He dared to venture into the mountains of the sleeping dragon all by himself and managed to kill one of the most powerful existences on the peak. He was far beyond what they could deal with. The sword formations used together by the 4 of them were very powerful, but they were not strong enough to defeat people who were far more powerful than them. I can sense a silver of threat from that person. His strength is definitely far beyond what we can deal with. We didn't come here for the divine water of the world, so we shouldn't offend an expert like him over something that's useless to us, one of the old men communicated through a technique. Fear filled his eyes. After killing Nicholas, the 4 of them had subconsciously become the most powerful group present. The divine water of the world was with them now, so they obviously became the center of attention for many people. Many of them watched Jian Qin with a sneer. They seemed to have already witnessed the moment Jian Qin died to the 4 metal swords. After all, even Nicholas, who could battle 5th heavenly layer Saint Kings, was dead. They did not doubt the 4 old men at all, and once they used their powerful sword formations, they could rival experts of the 6th heavenly layer. Jian Qin quickly approached the area. He glanced around before locking onto the 4 old men who possessed the divine water of the world. He strode for them. His presence was pressing, and with every step, it would constantly increase. Senior Yang Yutian, you finally returned. The divine water of the world would have been taken away by them if you hadn't returned. Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun ran over obsequiously and followed Jian Qin like servants. They were in high spirits and smiles plastered their faces. Jian Qin coldly stared at the 4 old men and said, I spent so much effort to lead away those 2 feral beasts at the peak of the 16th star, so the divine water didn't end up with them. It sure was easy for you to take advantage of others' work. A spectating Saint King immediately broke into laughter when he heard what Jian Qin had said. He mocked, Brat, aren't you going a little too far with your jokes? Do you really have the ability to lead away 2 peak 16th star beasts? Jian Qin's presence was powerful, but it was only at the 3rd heavenly layer of Saint King without the Emperor armament. Many Saint Kings obviously saw his strength since he was not hiding it, so they did not treat him with any importance. Only the 4 old men were exceptions. They weren't tricked by the strength Jian Qin currently displayed. He's still a little off from the peak of the 15th star. He's not even as great as me. Brat, let me witness your supreme techniques and see just what you used to lead away those 2 16th star beasts, sneered a man who seemed to be in his 20s. He was very burly, like a huge bear. He was 4 meters tall and his eyes were filled with scorn. A huge 2-headed axe appeared in his hand, and then he swung it. The axe immediately began to expand, becoming 100 meters long instantly. It traveled toward Jian Qin's head with an almost unstoppable force. You dare to be arrogant even when you're just at the 4th heavenly layer. You're courting death. Jian Qin coldly said. The emperor armament immediately appeared in his hand. Swinging out, he used his sword, which was a little over a meter long, to receive the 100-meter-long axe. The two weapons that did not match in size collided in the air. With a boom, the axe was actually sent flying by Jian Chen's sword, breaking free from the man's grasp. The supreme force actually shook the man's hand numb after passing through the axe, and he stumbled a few steps back. Many people's mouths were agape once they registered what had happened. It was unbelievable. The burly man was at the peak of the 15th star, yet he could not even withstand a single blow. The man had attacked with everything he had, and it would have been very difficult for Saint Kings at the third heavenly layer to receive. As a result, Jian Chen did not plan on letting him go. He coldly stared at the man and took a step forward, reappearing 100 meters away. He seemed to have arrived before the man instantaneously as he thrust the emperor armament toward the man's head. The man was surprised. Jian Chen's attack was just too fast, so fast he could not dodge. He immediately roared and a shield completely condensed from energy appeared in front of him. The emperor armament struck the shield and the shield immediately shattered. The emperor armament passed through it like a hot knife through butter, stabbing through the man's head under his terrified gaze. His soul was wiped out then and there. A fourth heavenly layer Saint King had actually been killed in a single attack. Without any doubt, the Saint King had become the one who had died the quickest. Jian Chen pulled out the emperor armament like it was nothing. Blood dripped from the sharp tip of the sword as he coldly looked around. He emotionlessly said, "Is there anyone else who wants to challenge me? Come at me." All the spectating Saint King's expressions changed with that. They all took a few steps back. At that moment, their opinions of Jian Chen finally changed. Shock flooded their faces as their gazes became filled with fear. They dared not meet Jian Chen's eyes. The battle between the 100-footed clan and Huangdao clan stopped as well because of the changing situation. They all stared at Jian Chen in shock as deep fear appeared in their eyes. Zhou Chuyun wiped away the blood from the corner of his mouth. He pointed at the Saint Kings and complained about them, reporting everything that had happened before. No, that was definitely not the case. Senior, it was all a misunderstanding before, and we didn't touch your people. I hope you can verify that, a skinny old man hurriedly explained. He would definitely not admit what he had said before, and the other Saint Kings all hurried to explain themselves as well. None of them dared to show any arrogance after personally witnessing Jian Chen's strength. "Where did the wounds on the two of you come from?" Jian Chen turned around and asked. From the ripples of battle." Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun became rather red in the face, feeling embarrassed. Jian Chen did not delve into the matter. Instead, he turned to the four old men and killing intent flickered in his eyes. "The water was taken by us from Nicholas of the Four Seas. If we didn't stop him, he probably would have ingested it long ago," said the old man who held the divine water of the world. Afterward, he tossed the jade bottle to Jian Chen without any unwillingness. Jian Chen caught the battle before glancing over the metal swords used by the old men. A sliver of light flickered through the depths of his eyes as he committed them to memory. After that, he opened the bottle cap to check and found that the water had indeed remained the same. Jian Chen put the bottle away before giving an order to Zhou Chuyun, "Call Zhou Lin and the others. We're leaving." Zhou Chuyun immediately went to find Zhou Lin and the others. The Heaven Saint Masters were very smart. As soon as they noticed something was wrong with the situation, they fled 20 kilometers. They avoided all the ripples of battle and returned with Zhou Chuyun unscathed. As Zhou Chuyun went off to get them, Lu Jun took advantage of the moment to check through all the corpses of the beasts. He had found a few thunderstones in the end and had removed all the space rings of the Saint Kings that had fallen in battle. Afterward, he passed all of them courteously to Jian Chen. The surrounding Saint Kings could only watch as Lu Jun removed all the space rings. Although they were tempted, they did nothing. Jian Chen left with the people of the Blue Sky Adventurers, leaving behind a large group of people who had failed to obtain the divine water of the world. They still stood there, mouths agape. The four old men stared deeply at Jian Chen's back as he walked away. Only when Jian Chen had completely disappeared from their vision did they look at each other. As if their minds were connected, They walked in Jian Chen's direction in unison. Afterward, all the Saint Kings that had gathered there left. All of them were filled with pity since they had just watched divine water of the world get taken away. Pay for Gus' life. Suddenly, the remaining Saint King of the Huangdao clan bellowed out. He quickly charged toward the heavily injured Grand Elder of the 100-footed clan who was missing an arm, but he was blocked by the other Saint King. The two of them began to fight once again. Lan Nemo did not participate in the battle between the two clans. Instead, he had backed far away long ago. He was currently pale-faced as his legs shook. He's actually a 16th star expert. I've actually provoked a 16th star expert. Lan Nemo was filled with lingering fear and a cold sweat flooded his forehead. Only now did he understand exactly what he had provoked. A 16th star expert was an existence that could easily wipe out his entire clan. It's fortunate that expert isn't petty. Lan Nemo felt lucky as he thought to himself. Young Master Lan Nemo, I seem to have forgotten about you. At this moment, a cold voice rang from afar. Lan Nemo immediately gave a violent jolted when he heard the terrifyingly familiar voice. He turned around in fear. All he saw was Jian Chen, Zhou Chuyun, and the others. They had actually turned around and were making their way to him. Senior. At this moment, Lan Nemo dared not to be prideful anymore. The arrogance he had displayed in Divine City had vanished long ago. He wanted to apologize, but he could not help but tremble under Jian Chen's sharp and cold glare. He did not even have the courage to speak. I had spared your life before, but you did not repent or change. You asked for it, Jian Chen coldly said. Afterward, he extended a finger and an azulate sword chi shot out. It pierced Lan Mo's forehead and wiped out his soul. He then turned around and walked off. Lu Jun quickly scurried over to his corpse and removed the space ring on his finger before immediately chasing after Jian Chen. Chapter 1129. Information on the spirits. See Jian Chen walked around the divine realm aimlessly with Zhou Chuyun and the others. They had no plans of leaving. Esteemed senior, you've already obtained the divine water of the world and more shouldn't appear in such a short amount of time. Zhou Chuyun spoke from behind Jian Chen. He had already ingested the Class 6 Radiant Spirit Pulse from Jian Chen, so he had recovered from almost all of his injuries. He was mostly fine now. After a moment of silence, Jian Chen passed a small portion of the divine water to Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun. He also gave them a few 15th star quaking thunders and said, I don't want to leave for now. Your lives will be threatened if you follow me around in the depths of the divine realm, so you should return first. No, Senior Yang Yutian. We've followed you for the entire journey, and we've already benefited greatly. How can we take something that belongs to you? Shocked by the unexpected action, Zhou Chuyun and Lu Jun dared to not accept the items from Jian Chen. Take it. If it weren't for you leading the way, I wouldn't have been able to obtain the divine water of the world. Plus, we already agreed to split things with you before. Jian Chen shoved the divine water of the world and the 15th star quaking thunders into their hands before bidding farewell to them. He had obtained far too little divine water. It was probably only enough for Hong Lian to recover her strength. The several dozen elites of the Flame Mercenaries also needed divine water of the world to increase the quality of their souls and their talent so they could reach Saint Ruler. As a result, Jian Chen needed to find more of the water. Zhou Chuyun, Lu Jun, and the other Heaven Saint Master reluctantly separated with Jian Chen. They embarked on their trip back. During the few days they were with Jian Chen, they had experienced a delight they had never experienced before while crossing through the divine realm, filling them with enthusiasm. The entire experience would become something they would cherish. However, they also knew that this feeling was not permanent because their relationship with Jian Chen was not very deep. They were just cooperating. Senior Yang Yutian, I will remember you forever. Before they separated, Zhou Lin stared at Jian Chen in admiration and respect. Her eyes were filled with reluctance. Jian Chen watched them disappear into the distance. He had silently helped Zhou Chuyun so much only because they were both of the same race. Jian Chen seemed to have seen his past self in the people who worked so arduously to become more powerful in this foreign land. Jian Chen dismissed his thoughts. He suddenly said, "The four of you have stalked me for so long. It's about time you appear." With that, four old men silently emerged from the bushes behind him. They did not make any sound, like ghosts. Jian Chen turned around and calmly looked at the four of them. He coldly asked, "Why are you following me?" The four old men did not respond. They calmly stared at him, and only after quite a while did someone talk. "Sir, it seems like you've only come to the divine realm in search of the water. So what if that's the case?" Jian Chen remained the same. "Sir, we might be able to cooperate if you want to obtain even more of the water," the old man continued. "Cooperate? Have you seen traces of more water?" A gleam of light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes, and his interest was immediately piqued. "We haven't seen other traces, but we know the source," said an old man. "What? The source of the divine water?" Jian Chen was shocked. He could no longer keep his composure. "Tell me what the source is like." "Many years ago, we once ventured into the depths of the divine realm and caught sight of a lake bathed in rainbow light from afar. Divine water of the world poured out endlessly from the middle, and most of it dropped into the lake. Only a very little amount hovered above the lake, floating about aimlessly through the entire divine realm," said the old man. He did not give any information as to where the lake was. "A lake that shines with the colors of the rainbow. Is that the Spirit Sea?" Jian Chen was greatly shaken. According to what they had said, it was extremely likely that they had seen the Spirit Sea. Once he found the Spirit Sea, the water would no longer be a problem. "We can work together. What are your conditions?" Jian Chen agreed without an hesitation. The information they had revealed was just too great of a temptation to him. "We have no conditions. We only wish to travel together because there's extremely powerful formations that protect the source. It's very difficult for the four of us to break through, so we need helpers. Once we get through the formations, you can take the divine water and we'll take what we need," said the old man. Pausing slightly, Jian Chen looked at the four of them as his eyes lit up. He gently smiled. "The item you four need must be very valuable, right?" "It is indeed valuable to us, but it is useless to you." A metal sword appeared in the old man's hands as he continues, "This is the weapon the four of use. It is not condensed from energy. It is instead forged from meteorites over several years. The item we need is a material for the sword, which can make it even more powerful." Jian Chen stared fixedly at the metal sword. He had been in this world for so long, yet all the weapons used by the experts he had come across were condensed from energy. Even Emperor armaments were the same. They were the solidification of energy, yet the four old men actually used metal swords as their weapons, clearly misfits compared to the rest of the world. "Quite an extraordinary metal sword. I can actually feel the souls of many living beings in it," Jian Chen praised. The four old men before him were not simple. They took a different path of cultivation, which could be understood just from their weapons. Jian Chen agreed with the four old men. He was very curious about their cultivation method, but he did not ask about it so boldly. Everyone had their secrets. The four old men lead the way, bringing Jian Chen in the direction of the source. After a conversation, Jian Chen had learned their names. They were very odd names: Ada, Air, Asen, and Aci. These were their real names. At the start of names is usually used for a nickname, such as calling a character both you and I know, Changyang Hu, as Ahu. The other parts of their names, after the apostrophe, compounds the strangeness because it basically means 1, 2, 3, and 4. Jian Chen had even learned that the four of them were actually brothers with the same parents. The three middle-aged men Jian Chen had killed in the cave a few days before were not connected to the four of them at all. They were only followers they had come across by chance. Jian Chen and the four of them did not discuss many things in detail. They were silent people and did not have much to say, always maintaining a cold face. Suddenly, an earth-shaking roar rang out. It caused the ground to shake as a 100-meter-tall ape with an axe on its shoulder furiously charged at Jian Chen. Jian Chen's face slightly changed. He said, He's coming for me. I never thought he'd still be able to find me. Let's go. With that, Jian Chen and the four old men quickly ran off. They pushed their speed to the limit, throwing off the ape very soon. The ape's one of the most powerful existences in the divine realm. It's reached the 16th star and possesses extremely terrifying power, but fortunately, speed is his weakness, or we'd be in deep trouble, Ada said with a deep voice as fear appeared in his eyes. He understood the situation of the divine realm extremely well. However, the ground far away began to tremble again without much time. The huge ape had actually caught up again. Without any choice, the five of them began to run once again, shaking off the huge ape. This time, they stopped after running over 100 kilometers. I could not help but ask, Yang Yutian, how did you provoke that ape? Why is it sticking to you and unwilling to let you go? The four of them looked at Jianchen. They felt victimized. They had done nothing at all, yet they had to suffer with Jianchen and face the pursuit of a terrifying ape. Before you started fighting over the divine water, I took away their child. Their child must have returned to them already. I just never thought that the ape would harbor resentment and would keep chasing after me, replied Jianchen. The four old men looked at each other. They needed to hand it to Jianchen for recklessly taking away the child of the two apes. Asen pulled out a bag of powder from his space ring. He said, "This is the powdered bones of feral beasts from the divine realm. Sprinkle it over you, and it should cover your scent. It'll prevent the ape from smelling you." Jianchen accepted the powder with doubts. After a quick examination, he gently picked up a little of it and sprinkled it over him after confirming there was nothing wrong with it. He soon realized that Asen's bone dust really was effective. The ape had indeed stopped pursuing after Jianchen had sprinkled the powder on him. The sense of smell of these beasts is very sensitive. The bone powder can only cover our scents temporarily. It won't hide us completely from the feral beasts, so we need to erase our presence as we travel and alert fewer beasts. The road ahead is relatively long. Very few people come to these depths to call the feral beasts. So many extremely powerful existences have appeared after some time. They're very hard to deal with, explained Ada as he carefully made his way to the very depths with Jianchen. The four of them had clearly entered the depths often. They possessed an extremely great understanding of the place. Not only could they tell what powerful feral beast was active in a certain region from a few small hints, they could even deduce what special and powerful types of feral beasts lived there depending on the environment and geography, allowing them to avoid many problems. There was even one time when they had entered the territory of the soaring ants. The four old men saw a few hints and backed out as soon as possible, avoiding the dangerous ants. Jianchen admired the four old men for their rich experience. He had even began to wonder whether or not the four of them had been born in the divine realm because they knew the place too well. They virtually had the power to avoid disaster. Chapter 1130. A mystical space. Relatively fewer battles occurred along the way. They had chosen to avoid almost all the feral beasts they came across, so head-on battles happened very rarely. They spent more time traveling. Jianchen and the four old men approached the end of the divine realm. They had traveled for 3 days and had finally arrived before a big, surging river. The pathway to the place is beneath the river. We discovered it accidentally. Follow us and don't get lost, said Ada. After that, the four of them all jumped into the river and disappeared, quickly sinking to the bottom. Jianchen did not hesitate either. He allowed chaotic force to surge through his body, pushing his defenses to the extreme before jumping in as well. The river was very deep. Following the four old men from behind, Jianchen sank for 10,000 meters before finally approaching the bottom. He endured the pressure from several dozen tons of water. It was enough to pulverize a normal person, but it was nothing to an expert like Jianchen. It was not pitch black at the bottom of the river. A layer of drifting sand glowed with a faint blue light, dyeing the bottom of the lake blue and making it seem like a wonderland. It was extremely pretty. A type of mutated fish lived down there. They were extremely powerful, and some of the more powerful ones could even threaten saint rulers. They attacked Jianchen and the four old men from time to time. The four old men had already drawn their metal swords. They slashed the fish in half and a blue liquid flowed from the dead fish. The fish did not possess red blood but blue blood. Jianchen would also send Azulite sword chi toward the fish that attacked him from time to time. The fish were not powerful, so the sword chi was enough. Jianchen and the four old men traveled upriver. After traveling several thousand meters, a 5-meter-wide hole appeared in front of them. The hole was completely hidden by the river and could only be discovered at the bottom. Jianchen followed Ada and the others into the hole. There was still a lot of drifting sand that glowed with blue light there. The sand was neither metal nor rock, but the particles were much larger in size, around thumb-sized. Jianchen picked up a handful of the particles and examined them. Afterward, he said to the four old men through a communication technique, "You should collect some of this. It's a material for forging weapons. If you add in some of this, it can greatly increase the power of your swords." Jianchen had already secretly asked the sword spirits and confirmed that the blue sand particles were a type of material. However, their quality was just far too low and would not be helpful when forging the Azulite swords. However, it was a high-quality material to their metal swords. The four of them became stunned by Jianchen's message. They looked at him in shock. They never would have thought that Jianchen would understand more about forging weapons than them, which was the reason why they became shocked. The four of them did not say much. All of them collected some of the pebble-like sand before continuing on. The deep blue hole was filled with water, so Jianchen and the four of them could not speak. All they could do was communicate using techniques. "We'll reach our destination after we pass through here. It's a brand new world in there, so be careful," Ada informed Jianchen. When they reached the end of the hole, there was not a rock face but a region of twisting, blurry space. It was not the first time the four old men had come here. They passed through the blurry space with much familiarity before vanishing. Jianchen hesitated slightly and secretly made some preparations. Afterward, he entered the distorted space as well and vanished from the tunnel. Stepping out, Jianchen's vision suddenly returned. He quickly glanced around and discovered that he seemed to have come to another world to his shock. However, before he could observe anything in more detail, he suddenly felt weightless. He actually began to fall. Jianchen stabilized himself very quickly. He discovered that he had actually appeared at an altitude of several hundred meters after passing through the tunnel. There was an extremely slippery rock face below him, and he just happened to emerge in the center of it. The tunnel he had emerged from was blurry and unclear. "This is our destination, where the divine water of the world is sourced." Ada and the others levitated at the same altitude as Jianchen. There was no joy on their faces, only seriousness. Jianchen looked forward and immediately became overjoyed. A huge lake lay over 10 kilometers away from him and water constantly shot out of the center. It created a 10-meter-tall spray. Some slightly multicolored divine water floated atop the lake before falling back into it. An extremely small portion of the divine water drifted from the lake and then weirdly disappeared. "A spirit sea. This is a spirit sea." Jianchen rejoiced inside. He had heard about the spirit sea from the sword spirits, so he obviously recognized it at first glance. Obtaining the divine water of the world will definitely be difficult. A powerful layer of formations surround the source, and a group of extremely powerful beasts cultivate on the outer layers. These beasts have all ingested the water and possess intelligence, so they are much harder to deal with than the ones outside, Asen said with a deep voice. Jianchen glanced over and his joy disappeared very quickly. It was gradually replaced by a sternness. He had discovered that the spirit sea was just as Asen had described, covered by a powerful formation. Over 30 mountainous feral beasts gathered outside the formation, and every single one of them radiated with vast presences. Even the weakest one was at the 7th heavenly layer of Saint King, while the strongest was at the great perfection of Saint King, and there were multiple at each layer. Suddenly, Jianchen's heart skipped a beat. He stared at a smaller and unimpressive beast in shock as his heart surged. A Class 9 feral beast. "There's actually a Class 9 feral beast here," Jianchen exclaimed inside. He was filled with disbelief. There was actually a beast as powerful as a saint emperor among them. Jianchen became grim. With so many terrifying beasts guarding the area, it was impossible for them to venture into the spirit sea. Looks like I need to get Rui Jin and the others to help out, Jianchen sighed inside. He had come across powerful foes he could not overcome himself. Don't worry. These beasts may be very terrifying, but they are not without weaknesses. The four of us once stayed here in secret for several centuries, so we know their habits like the back of our hands. Every 100 years, the formations here will become unstable. It will disturb the surroundings and isolate the area, making the region extremely unstable. At that moment, the beast's senses and smell will be affected. That will be the perfect time for us to enter. There's not just one layer of formations here. There's another 2 layers hidden inside. The 3 layers divide the area into 3 regions. The region where the beasts stay is only within the first layer of formations. They inhabit something like an alternate space, so they can't discover us unless we enter the first layer of formations. All we need to do now is wait for the formation to become unstable. Then we will take advantage of when the senses of the beasts are at their weakest and quickly pass through the first and second layer of formations. These beasts can't pass through the second layer, so it's impossible for them to injure us. How much time is there until the formations become unstable again? Jianchen asked. We've calculated it accurately. There should be half a month to a month left. No longer than 3 months. With that, Jianchen temporarily gave up on the idea of letting out Rui Jin and the other 2. If he could, he wanted to use his own efforts to obtain everything he needed. He did not want to rely on others too much. Afterward, Jianchen, Ada, and the other 3 waited for half a month, finally witnessing the instability that occurred once every century. Wild streams of energy suddenly appeared as the 3 layers of formations up ahead violently pulsed. The space up ahead became extremely distorted, such that one's line of sight became completely obscured. One's vision was reduced to a blurry, chaotic world, where all senses were nullified by the distorted space. It's now. Let's go. Ada yelled out and quickly charged toward the formations with his 3 brothers. The instability of the formations would not last long, so they did not have much time. They needed to use every single second they had. Jianchen used the illusory flash to tail them closely. They crossed over 10 kilometers in the blink of an eye, quickly approaching the first layer of formations. The 4 brothers then began to advance using an odd sequence of steps. This was the key to the formation. It had been invented by the 4 of them after years of intensive study. Jianchen had been warned long ago. He did not recklessly charge around as he entered the formation, and instead he followed the 4 brothers' rhythmic pace. In the end, they passed into the first region of space without any obstructions, entering the same world as the beasts. The beasts were greatly affected by the instability of the formations. They had lost all sense of the situation around them. They could not see or smell, possessing no idea that other people had already entered the region. However, the 5 of them were exactly the same. They held hands with each other as they advanced, afraid that they would be separated. We still have roughly 10 minutes, Ada said through a communication technique. Afterward, the 5 of them formed a straight line as they made their way to the second region purely by instinct. At this moment, Ada, who was at the very front, suddenly stopped, almost causing the people behind him to crash. A thunderous roar rang out from ahead soon after, causing the entire place to shake. Shit, I've collided with a beast. Ada could not help but swear. Everyone was affected by the distortion of space, so they could not see anything at all. They had determined their route outside, so once they deviated even slightly, it would be very easy for them to collide with a beast. All of their expressions changed before they immediately traveled around the beast they could not see. They continued to run to the second region since they would be safe once they entered it. Furious roars rang out behind them as the ground constantly trembled, causing the space to distort even more violently. The beast that Ada had crashed into before had already gained self-consciousness and was fairly intelligent. It immediately reached the conclusion that outsiders were intruding and became angered. Violent attacks began to permeate the first region. The beast had began to attack the surrounding area extensively in attempt to find the intruders. Some of its attacks struck the first and second layers of the formation, causing them to violently pulse. The furious roars of the beast shook the earth. Even though all their senses were affected by the unstable formations, some nearby beasts still managed to hear the loud sounds. Furious roars immediately began to ring out one after another. They were communicating with the beasts around them using a special method. Chapter 1131. The Nirvanic Immortal exult. Shit, more and more feral beasts are detecting our presence. We need to get to the second layer of formations as soon as possible, Air said through a communication techniques. He was extremely stern. The beasts here were just too powerful. There were multiple beasts that were equal to Hall Elders, and there was even a Class 9 feral beast hidden between them. The 5 of them began to move even faster. At that moment, all of them pushed their speed to the utmost limit, using every second they had to travel to the second region. They used everything they had hid before, no longer holding back at all. The beasts in the first region learned that there were intruders through communication techniques with one another. They all roared out furiously as they aimlessly attacked in attempt to find the intruders. The ground trembled violently from the attacks and the entire region shook. The space there even began to ripple, showing signs of shattering even though it was much tougher than the space in the sea realm. The ground within the formation was clearly protected by a powerful and mysterious energy. No matter what attacks landed on the ground, the land was not destroyed. The space became even more unstable from the attacks of the beasts, so Jian Chen and the others could not use their various abilities to hurry along by controlling space. They all used the various movement techniques they knew to travel extremely fast. Jian Chen used the illusory flash to stick close behind the old men. They continued to hold hands with one another to avoid becoming lost. Terrifying energy ripples from the attacks swept past them. The powerful attacks from the beasts landed beside them many times, almost injuring them. If it were not for their strength, just the ripples of energy would have been enough to stop them from advancing or even heavily injure them. Ada and the 3 others all because extremely stern. They clenched their teeth tightly as sweat poured from their foreheads. At that moment, they felt like a few kilometers, which was usually nothing to them, was extremely far away. It was impossible for them to travel at their usual speeds in the space shaken up by energy. Spurt. Suddenly, Tai vomited a mouthful of blood. His chest was randomly struck by a fist-sized ball of energy, and his flesh completely disappeared there. He became heavily injured. Tai tightly clenched his teeth and endured. He continued toward the second region without slowing down at all. Finally, they successfully reached the second layer of formations before quickly entering it. However, before they could relax, Ada said, "Crap, the formations changed from the attacks of those beasts. The method we originally comprehended to get through here has become useless." Air, Asen and Aya's expressions all drastically changed. They all called out without a second thought, "Retreat, let's retreat and get out." Comprehending the method to enter the formation was not something that could be completed in a short moment. They did not have much time right now, so they could not slowly study the formation. They immediately began to retreat, wanting to leave the formation. Otherwise, all the beasts would see them once the formation stabilized. There would only be death for them at that point. As they ran back, all of them sustained some injuries. Even Jian Chen was hit as well. His left arm had been clawed to a bloody mess. When the 4 old men made it back to the first layer of formations, their faces changed once more. Ada cried out, "We're in deep trouble now." The formation out had also changed from the attacks of the beasts. "We can't leave." "What?" Air and the others all became shocked with that. Despair filled their eyes. They had all realized the problem. They were trapped in there with a group of terrifying beasts, and the beasts would definitely not let them go. At this moment, the formations gradually began to stabilize. The distorted space rapidly recovered and the blurriness slowly disappeared. "We don't have any more time. We're dead if we still don't get out," I yelled in a panic. The 4 of them were utterly panic-stricken right now. They had lost all composure, only Jian Chen was the exception. "Maybe this will work," said Jianqin. Afterward, he let out the white tiger from the saint artifact and said, "Xiao Bai, quickly take us out of here." Jianqin immediately jumped onto its back and told Ada and the three others to grab onto its wings. He planned on using the white tiger's natural ability to ignore formations and spatial barriers to take them out. Without any hesitation, the white tiger attempted to charge out with Jianqin. However, when it hit the formation, it did not directly pass through like usual and was instead blocked. The white tiger growled and attempted to get through the formation again. However, it still failed. It was trapped in the formation with Jianqin and the others. Jianqin was filled with disbelief with that. He dismounted the white tiger and gruffly said, "The formations here are weird. They aren't as simple as they seem." As he said that, he sent the white tiger back into the saint artifact. The formations finally stabilized while they tried to leave with the white tiger. All of them were exposed to the beasts. With an earth-shaking roar, all the eyes of the beasts became bloodshot. They became filled with a ruthless bloodlust. Although they all possessed intelligence, the bloodthirsty instinct within them remained. Several beasts immediately began to attack Jianqin. The weakest was at the 7th heavenly layer of Saint King, and there was even one at the 9th heavenly layer that charged over. The feral beasts all varied in appearance. Some were like large cats while others seemed to be the amalgamation of several animals. It was impossible to name them. Jianqin drew his emperor armament and charged at the beasts. Ada and the three others also quickly formed a sword formation to fend off the beasts, but the disparity between their strength was just far too great. Although their sword formations were very strong, they were still not strong enough to defend against a single swipe from many of the beasts. They all were thrown back as they vomited blood. His entire arm had been crushed and pulled off by the jaws of a beast. It was painful that he could not help but shriek. His severed arm was devoured noisily. "Brother!" Asen and Tai all cried out. They knew that it would be very difficult for Ada to recover his severed arm since there was no medicine that could regrow limbs. "Quick, use the final forbidden technique and flee. We can't stay here, or we'll end up dead for sure," Ada called out as he resisted the pain. His voice was extremely hoarse. Afterward, he turned to Jianqin and said, "Brother Yang Yuten, forgive us. We'll be leaving first. I hope we can meet again in the future." With that, the four of them immediately gathered together in a weird formation. They placed their swords horizontally against their chests and chanted, "Of the vast world, all is one. With the nirvanic sword formation, only we are supreme. With the four swords as one, all shall be destroyed." With their chant, the four metal swords immediately began to shine with blinding light. At that moment, the light from the four swords bonded together before enveloping the four of them and surging into the sky. They vanished at that very moment. In the blink of an eye, only Jianqin was left in the formation, stuck in a difficult battle against the beasts. Jianqin already knew that he had no other choice now. There was no hope of victory at all just by himself, so he immediately stopped holding back and released Rui Jin, He Yu, and Hong Lian from the Saint artifact. The three of them did not need an explanation from Jianqin. They understood the situation just from a single glance. Rui Jin said, "Let us deal with the trouble here." Rui Jin gazed past the many beasts and locked onto the 2-meter-long, tiger-like beast in the distance. His eyes began to shine with interest and the sacred dragon's sword and sacred dragon's armor appeared at the same time. He equipped the armor and charged at the Class 9 feral beast with the sword. At the same time, He Yu donned his origin energy armor. He drew his machete and split the 9th heavenly layer feral beast Jianqin was fighting into two. Weapons with origin energy were just far too powerful. Just a single strike was life-threatening, so the beast immediately met its end. It could not even resist. Flames roared around Hong Lian. She was like a goddess of flames as the terrifying fire seemed to be able to scorch the air. The flames caused the surrounding temperature to skyrocket and many of the beasts became extremely fearful of her flames. Hong Lian did not take part in the battle and instead stood beside Jianqin, glaring at the surrounding beasts. Her strength had been greatly reduced, but she was still able to frighten away the beasts. A thought pulsed from the azulate sword spirits as they gathered around a multicolored rock in Jian Chen's sea of consciousness. No wonder I felt that the presence of the four metal swords was rather familiar, so it turns out that they practiced the famed technique of the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt, the Nirvanic Sword Formation. The Nirvanic Immortal Exalt was one of the 5 grand exalts. He had reached the same level of cultivation as former master, having reached the utmost extremes in terms of strength. It's a pity he died to the grand prime of the warring gods in the end. In that battle back then, the Nirvanic Immortal Exalt fell first. His 4 swords shattered and their sword spirits dispersed. Afterward, our original swords shattered as well. We managed to survive in the end and were born from Yin Yang Qi and are blessed by the world, but our vitality was greatly weakened as well. The Nirvanic Immortal Exalt always moved by himself. He never had a disciple, so it's fortunate that his famed technique was not lost after his death. Though, it's a pity that the 4 of them haven't seemed to obtain the full cultivation method and their swords are too low quality. Otherwise, the force of the Nirvanic sword formation would never have been so puny. Chapter 1132. The third layer of formations. Jian Chen did not hear the discussion between the sword spirits. He had placed all his attention on Rui Jin, He Yu, and Honglian. Even Saint Emperors would struggle to injure He Yu and Rui Jin once they had equipped their origin energy armor. Their origin energy weapons allowed them to use attacks on the level of Saint Emperors, so their battle prowess was extremely frightening. They were basically 2 real Saint Emperors. Rui Jin fought the Class 9 feral beast all by himself. Their fight was devastating as terrifying energy rammed into the formations on their sides, but the formations only trembled slightly and did not break. What was even more unbelievable was that their fight actually failed to cause any damage to the ground. The invisible energy that protected the land was just far too incredible. The Class 9 feral beast had awakened intelligence long ago. It had grasped Saint Emperor abilities after many years of cultivation, so it was very powerful. It was equally matched with Rui Jin, but it feared Rui Jin's sacred dragon's sword very much. It always dodged and never dared to take it head-on. Origin energy was a type of energy at a whole different level. It was far more powerful than the energy of Saint Emperors, so it would pose great harm to Saint Emperors. When the Path Lord of Carnal Desires and the 2 Saint Emperors of the Beast God continent clashed with Rui Jin and He Yu, none of them dared to take the origin energy attacks head-on. That origin energy was something that Saint Emperors feared very much. He Yu charged at the beasts with his machete and started a massacre. The strongest beasts only possessed a similar level of cultivation as him, but He Yu was a mutated divine alligator. He possessed a battle prowess far greater than beasts of the same level. Coupled with his origin energy weapon, he was even stronger. Even when caught in an encirclement of beasts, he did not fall to a disadvantage at all. He instead continued to kill them one by one. In just a few seconds, over 10 beasts had died to He Yu's hands. This included 2 at the great perfection of Saint King. Fear filled the eyes of the remaining beasts when they saw how powerful He Yu was. They wanted to run away. Among them were 3 other beasts at great perfection as well, but they did not become involved with the battle. They retreated out of the formation after understanding the situation in front of them. They had already become utterly terrified by He Yu's battle prowess and had lost all courage to fight. In the end, a few more beasts died and the remaining ones retreated out of the formation. They had learned how to get out quite some time ago. Without an opponent, He Yu glanced at the Class 9 feral beast that fought Rui Jin. A vicious light flickered through his eyes. The Class 9 feral beast's heart skipped a beat when he saw this. A thought immediately pulsed from it. Outsiders, you are very powerful. I will leave and let you have this territory. With that, the Class 9 feral beast no longer bothered with Rui Jin. It leaped through the formation. Class 9 feral beasts were equivalent to Saint Emperors. They were not easy to kill, and if they wanted to leave, even Rui Jin and He Yu were not enough to stop them. In the end, the first region between the formations was reduced to a ground full of 16th star feral beasts where blood dyed the ground. Jian Chen checked through their corpses and found by surprise that they all possessed thunderstones. Even the weakest thunderstones were at the 7th heavenly layer, and there were even 2 at the great perfection of Saint King. Senior Rui Jin, Senior Heiyu, Senior Honglian, can you help me fill up these thunderstones with energy when you have the time? Jianchen collected all the thunderstones and passed them all to the 3 of them along with his 15th star thunderstones in his space ring. The thunderstones required an expert that was just as strong or stronger than the beast it came from to input energy, and only then could they become quaking thunders. Otherwise, nothing would happen at all. The 3 of them split the thunderstones into 3 portions. It was a simple matter to them. Jianchen, where is this place? Is it the death nest? Heiyu looked around and asked. No, this is a zone of danger in the sea realm, the divine realm. Jianchen explained. Suddenly, streaks of light began to shine from Rui Jin's eyes. He examined the formations without even blinking. As he slowly glanced around, 2 layers of formations hidden in space slowly appeared. The formations here are very powerful and very profound, Rui Jin said after a while. He was very stern. Now that the threat of the beasts had been resolved, Jianchen placed his focus on the divine water of the world and the formations again. He then let the white tiger out of the artifact space and continued to attempt to pass through the formations with the white tiger. But, to Jianchen's disappointment, the formations here were extraordinary. The white tiger's innate ability was actually ineffective against these formations. It's a pity that Ada and them aren't here. They've studied formations quite extensively, so if they were here, we could find a way again very quickly, Jianchen gently sighed. He had come across quite a few formations in his life, but he had broken through all of them through brute strength. He had never studied them, so he had no foundation in the aspect of formations. I've tried earlier and found that these formations can completely withstand a full-powered attack from me. It's impossible to break through them forcefully, Heiyu said as well. He was extremely stern. He had only come across formations so powerful once before, and that was in the Bright Moon Divine Hall. Let me try. Rui Jin called out. He swung the sword in his hands and struck the formation as hard as he could. However, the formation only shook slightly after being hit by his attack that was on par with the Saint Emperor. He could not break through it. Rui Jin refused to believe this outcome and swung his sword several more times. He struck both the first and second layer of formations, but the outcome was still the same. The toughness of the formations could be described as heaven-defying. Strength at the level of Saint Emperors was not enough to break through them forcefully. The formations have been struck by attacks from the beasts during the instability, so they've undergone some minute changes. The way in before has become useless now, or I could have tried using Ada's special sequence of footsteps that had brought us in the first place. Looks like we're now just stuck here and need to slowly study the formation, Jianchen helplessly said. They could do nothing about the formations present here. 3 steps diagonally left, 9 steps diagonally right, 5 steps left, 2 steps back, 4 steps diagonally right. Suddenly, a voice rang out in Jianchen's head. Ziying remained quiet for some time before speaking. Ziying, is this the way into the formation? Jianchen asked in surprise and joy. Master, this is one of the many ways into this formation. This formation may be extraordinary, but it is not one of the best. It is not a problem for us, said Ziying. Master, Ziying and I know quite a lot of things. We may just be sword spirits, but we have existed for a very long time after all. We can find a way through most formations, but not all formations have a method to get through them. There are many killing formations that have no way out. If Master comes across a formation like this, we will be no help. Qing Sua's pleasant voice rang out. It was filled with pride. Jianchen followed the special sequence that Ziying told him. He finally made his way into the second region without any obstructions, while Rui Jin and the others did not return to the artifact space either. They followed Jianchen to the second region. The white tiger stayed out as well. It shrank to the size of a cat and quietly sat on Jianchen's shoulder. The light in its eyes flickered as it looked around curiously, but its gaze stopped many times on the formations. It would produce a deep growl from time to time, appearing to be rather irritated. It felt unhappy with what happened earlier. Clearly, The white tiger took the fact that it was unable to pass through the formations to heart. The second region was very safe. There were no beasts there, and Jianchen was even closer to the Spirit Sea after arriving there, such that he could see the lake that glowed with water several kilometers away. Master, you need to attack the 18 crucial points of the formation to get through it. They need to be destroyed at the same time, and a passage through the formation will rip open. This passage closes up very fast, so you need to pass through it as quickly as you can. Ziying saw through the secrets of the formations very soon and told Jianchen how to get past it. That's easy. I can instantly send out 18 sword chi, said Jianchen. He was proficient with using the sword fast, so this was nothing difficult to him. Master, it won't be enough with your power. You need attacks at the level of Saint Emperors to destroy these crucial points, Ziying followed up. What? It needs to be at the level of Saint Emperors? Jianchen was shocked. He had never come across such a powerful formation where only Saint Emperors could enter. Master, from my observations, the power of the formation does not seem to be at its maximum. Otherwise, the 18 crucial points would have been even tougher, and even attacks at Saint Emperor wouldn't have been enough. The power of this formation completely exceeds this world. It shouldn't have appeared here in the first place, said Qing Suo. Was this formation cast down by someone in the origin realm? Jianchen was secretly shocked. The first person he thought of was the sea goddess. Afterward, Jianchen told Ruijin and the other two how to get past the formation. He needed to rely on them for attacks at the level of Saint Emperors. My strength has been greatly reduced right now. I can't use the full force of the scorching godfire hairpin, so I won't be able to attack a crucial point, Hong Lian emotionlessly replied. There are many secret techniques I know that can send out 18 attacks at the same time, but I can only use the sacred dragon sword to reach the might of Saint Emperors. It's impossible for me to attack that many times in so little time, Ruijin frowned. Heiyu remained silent for a while before saying, I can only deal 4 attacks at the same time. I can deal 6 attacks. There are 8 points left. Ruijin stood with his arms crossed as he sternly stared at the formation ahead. At this moment, an idea appeared in Jianchen's head. He immediately pulled out the divine water of the world he had just obtained and passed it to Hong Lian. He said, Senior Hong Lian, this water can help you recover your strength. Ingest it now. Once your strength recovers, we'll have a much better chance at getting through the formation. Hong Lian accepted the divine water of the world and glanced at Jianchen in suspicion. She drank a small mouthful of it with some doubt, but her face became filled with obvious joy the next moment. This stuff really can help me recover my strength. It can cure the backlash from using the rebirth of flames for scorching divine phoenixes, but there's just far too little. It can't return my strength to my peak, probably to the 8th heavenly layer at most. I might only be able to attack 3 points. Jianchen slightly frowned. He still possessed some more divine water, which was the portion he had bought with a vast quantity of crystal coins from the auction. However, he had prepared it to forge the azulate swords, and there was even less than what he had just obtained. Even if Hong Lian ingested it, she might not be able to benefit from it. It was not enough to recover another level of cultivation's worth of strength. After pondering a while, Jianchen did not use the other divine water he had on him. He said rather painfully, looks like we can only use the quaking thunders to blow up the 5 other points. It's fortunate that I have quite a few of them on me. If you place a few together in one point, it should be at the level of Saint Emperors. We only need to arrange these quaking thunders in 5 locations. Chapter 1133. Several hundred liters of divine water. Quickly recover your strength, Hong Lian. Hey, you and I will use this time to fill the thunderstones with energy, said Ruijin. He then sat down where he was with Heiyu. He began to pour energy into the thunderstones. Hong Lian ingested all of the divine water in one mouthful before sitting down far away. Immediately, scarlet flames erupted from her and enveloped the area around her. The surrounding temperature quickly began to rise. The flames around Hong Lian burned more and more intense. They grew hotter and hotter. Her presence continuously increased. She was currently making a recovery. Jianchen sat down on the ground far away from Hong Lian. He then pulled out the great divination technique from his space ring to continue his comprehensions. Jianchen was very interested in the great divination technique's ability to forecast the future and reveal the truths of the world. He had wanted to grasp the secret technique for quite some time already, but it was extremely difficult to gain a grasp of the foundation, which was why he had always remained stuck. Jianchen entered a special state very quickly. He devoted all his attention to the wondrous state of comprehending the great divination technique. He had forgotten about himself, about time, and about everything else in that moment. His mind entered a simple state of semi-consciousness. Jianchen's mind seemed to have arrived in a vast universe. He stood in cold, dark space as stars littered his surroundings. They moved about silently in a profound trajectory. Jianchen seemed to have seen the birth of the universe and the chaotic age where everything came into existence. He saw laws slowly form, one after another, filling up the entire universe. At that moment, Jianchen seemed to have understood something, but it was hazy, dreamlike, and unrealistic. He could not grasp it even though he wanted to. Jianchen completely isolated him from the flow of time. He stayed in that state for a long amount of time, even he himself did not know how long. Finally, a call rang out from the depths of his soul, jerking him awake. He had exited the state at that moment. Master, Ruijin and the other two have finished their preparations. It was the artifact spirit's voice. Jianchen had ordered the artifact spirit to immediately wake him up if something happened. Jianchen quietly put away the great divination technique. He knew it was extremely difficult to comprehend the great divination technique. Grasping the basics would not be easy. To one side, Ruijin, Heiyu, and Hong Lian stood side by side as they calmly gazed at Jianchen. A pile of fist-sized quaking thunders had been placed near their feet as violent and extremely unstable energy pulsed from them. The pulsing actually managed to disturb the surrounding energy of the world. Jianchen stood up. After talking a little, he learned that he had actually sat there for a month already, which made him sigh inside about how cultivation really was timeless. Hong Lian had already recovered to the 8th heavenly layer after ingesting the divine water of the world. Her battle prowess had increased by quite a lot. Afterward, Jianchen told the three of them where the 18 crucial points were. He split 13 of them between Ruijin, Heiyu, and Hong Lian, before picking up the large pile of quaking thunders and leaving an imprint of his soul on them. This was for igniting the quaking thunders. All of them finished their preparations very quickly. Ruijin, Heiyu, and Hong Lian all drew their origin energy weapons. With an order from Jianchen, they began to attack the crucial points as hard as they could in unison. They struck out multiple times in a single moment with attacks on the level of Saint Emperors. At the same time, the quaking thunders turned into balls of light with a thought from Jianchen. Close to 30 quaking thunders simultaneously flew out in organized groups under Jianchen's control. They flew to the 5 remaining points before exploding with deafening booms. Each cluster was as powerful as an attack from a Saint Emperor, so the 5 points were obliterated at the same time. The 18 points were destroyed at the same time with Jianchen, Ruijin, Hong Lian, and Heiyu's efforts. The destruction of the points caused the final layer of formations to pulse in an unstable fashion and a meter-wide passage gradually ripped open. It was very unstable. Jianchen's eyes narrowed. Without any hesitation, he immediately charged toward the passage with the 3 others. The white tiger remained on Jianchen's shoulder, clinging to a strand of Jianchen's hair with its little paws. The passage remained for a very short amount of time, closing up again in just a few seconds. The pulsing formation calmed down very quickly again, and they had successfully made their way through it, reaching the last region. This formation is just far too powerful. Even this is not enough to destroy it. Heiyu could not help but sigh in amazement as he stood by the last layer of formations. Jianchen stared fixedly at the lake that sprayed water. His eyes blazed with interest. After many setbacks, his heart's desire had finally come true, and he had found the source of the divine water. At that moment, both Hong Lian's problem with strength and the difficulties the elite flame mercenaries faced while reaching Saint Ruler could readily be solved. They were no longer problems. Jian Chen slowly walked toward the spirit sea excitedly. As he drew near, a heavy fragrance hit his nose. Many special plants and weird flowers grew around the lake. They were very extraordinary. Their smell possessed the special effect of calming people down. It was even effective to people at Jian Chen's level. A geyser formed at the center of the lake as it launched water into the air. The water was extremely pure and filled with spirituality, vastly different from regular lake water. Thumb-sized droplets of divine water existed within the normal water. Although they were together, the two did not mix. A portion of the divine water hovered on the lake surface before falling back into it. Only the tiny portion that remained atop the lake mysteriously disappeared. This was the source of the divine water of the world. All the divine water in the divine realm drifted out from here. With a plunk, Jian Chen jumped into the lake. He swam to the center and paid no attention to the small amount that sank down. Not much time passed before Jian Chen arrived in the center of the lake. A meter-wide pit existed there, and it was filled with divine water of the world. There was an extremely great amount, at least several hundred liters. The thumb-sized amount Jian Chen had spent a lot of effort to obtain earlier was like an ant next to an elephant. The divine water of the world that was shooting out of the geyser and sinking to the bottom of the lake gathered at the pit from all directions. This was like the den for divine water, able to suck over all the dispersed water. Jian Chen could not help but gulp down a huge mouthful of the water. A wonderful feeling immediately invaded his soul. At that moment, Jian Chen could feel his soul sublimating. It filled him with an indescribably great feeling, as if he was treading on air. The effects of the divine water were extremely wondrous and powerful. Although it was less effective to Saint Kings than Saint Rulers, Saint Kings could still benefit from it. It was only a matter of quantity. The mouthful of water Jian Chen had drank was equivalent to several thousand years or even over 10,000 years worth of water from the divine realm. After a very long while, Jian Chen finally recovered from the wonderful feeling. He did not feel his strength increase in the slightest, but his soul was clearly much more refined now. The effects of the divine water were not great on experts that had reached a certain level of power, but it was a high-quality beverage. Jian Chen hurriedly pulled out a huge gourd from his space ring and began to collect the water. The divine water in the small pit was rapidly pulled up as a suction force appeared from the gourd. Jian Chen stopped after collecting several hundred liters. At that moment, the remaining divine water sat at the bottom of the pit. There was not much left. Jian Chen sealed up the gourd and weighed the hefty gourd. Only then did he leave satisfied, returning back to the shore. Rui Jin, He Yu, and Hong Lian stood silently on the shore as they watched Jian Chen. They did not go down to drink the water since it was useless to them even with the water's wonders. It was only somewhat useful to Hong Lian. Jian Chen, give me 25 liters of the water. This water is very useful to me, Hong Lian asked Jian Chen as he arrived before the three of them with the gourd. Without saying anything else, Jian Chen immediately pulled out a palm-sized jade bottle from his space ring. He extravagantly set aside 50 liters for Hong Lian. He had over 400 liters in the gourd, so even if he gave Hong Lian 50 liters, the remaining amount was still enough to support the flame mercenaries for at least 100,000 years. It could ensure that experts appeared continuously for the flame mercenaries. Even with Hong Lian's mental fortitude, she could not help but become slightly overjoyed after obtaining 50 liters of divine water. She said, "Let me return to the artifact space. I want to recover my strength as soon as possible. I just happen to want to enter the artifact space as well and check on the group of elites." Jian Chen immediately pulled out the saint artifact and entered with Hong Lian. Rui Jin and He Yu remained outside, watching over and protecting the saint artifact. Jian Chen appeared in a grand hall within the artifact space. He boldly walked over to the throne and casually sat down. Hong Lian went to her own dwelling to go into seclusion, planning on ingesting the water and returning to her peak condition. "Is the artifact spirit present?" Jian Chen called out in the empty hall from the throne. "This one is present." May I ask for master's orders? The artifact spirit appeared beside Jian Chen and asked courteously. Bring me the group of people I've left in here. I want to see them immediately, ordered Jian Chen. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.